All right, folks. So again, for those of you who might have just joined, the chat feature tonight is being used for attendance and for technical issues. The chat is only
Michael, can you mute everyone? There's an echo.
Okay. All right. So again, the chat's only going to be used for attendance as well as for technical issues. The chat's only coming to the two hosts of the meeting in Zoom, myself and Trever Holland. So we're the only two that will see any messages. So we're trying to not have a second meeting go on while the verbal meeting is going on in the chat. So that's why we do it this way. So just use it for attendance and if you're having any technical issues. We are probably going to keep everyone muted since this is a very large meeting, and we're going to use the raise hands feature to unmute people if you want to ask a question, or for board members for attendance issues, we'll do that as well. If you are on the phone, it is *9 to raise your hand, and *6 to mute and unmute yourself once we give you that option. If you are on a computer or a tablet, to access the raise hands feature, you go down to the toolbar where it says participants and open up the participants window, and that will show you the raise hand feature. So the way we're going to run tonight's meeting is typically the same way we run them in person. We have a large agenda tonight with a lot of presentations from a lot of city agencies. We will hear those presentations, after which the chair of the committee, which is Trever, will take questions and comments from committee members first and other community board members, as we have been joined by a few of those. And then afterwards, we will open up the comments and questions to members of the public. So I believe that, and again, we're going to use the raise hands feature for that. So if you have a question, make sure to raise your hand. But we ask that you wait until we ask for questions from the public to raise your hand, because if you raise your hand while we're looking for board members, it gets a little confusing to run the meeting. I believe, Trever, that's everything. We are recording the meeting, and it will be posted probably tomorrow, if not Monday, on our YouTube channel. So if you want to revisit the joy of Community Board Parks and Rec meeting, you can do so at your leisure. And Trever, I will hand it over to you.
Well, thanks everyone for tonight's Park, Recreation, Waterfront, and Resiliency Committee meeting for August. Typically, we do not meet in the month of August, but all things considered with COVID and other related issues, there are a lot of things going on, so we decided to have an August meeting. We do have a packed agenda. Hopefully, it won't go as long as it looks, because a lot of the items are very related. We are going to move things around just a bit, just to make it more efficient. But first, we're going to start with the approval of last month's minutes, which is also our way of taking attendance for committee members. So Ryan, you are unmuted. Can you ask for people to approve the minutes?
Trever Holland?
Yes.
Kathleen Webster?
Yes.
David Adams?
Yes.
Yaron Altman?
Yes.
Carlin Chan?
Yes.
Ryan Gillum, yes. Valentina Jones?
Yes.
Michael Marino?
Yes.
Carolyn Ratcliffe?
Yes.
Robin Chattel? Josephine Velez?
Yes.
Troy Velez?
Yes.
Is that everyone, Ryan?
Yes, that's everyone, sorry.
Okay, thanks. Just a note about the raise hand feature and for speaking. We did have a couple people send me emails who requested to speak beforehand. They had asked to speak before the agenda item, and I know there are folks who want to speak when the topic is going on. So after we do the Parks Manager update, we're going to go to those speakers who have signed up or who have sent an email or a text early on. If you wish to speak, I know Val's the only other person. Val, if you want to speak before ESCR or during ESCR, I don't know what your preference is.
I'll speak before.
Okay.
3 minutes, right? 2 minutes, yeah, okay.
2 minutes. So I'm talking about right after the parks manager or right before the agenda item? We're going to move ESCR. That's what I'm asking. We're going to move ESCR.
Right before the agenda item is good. Does that work for you?
Perfect.
Does that work? Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right. So Jamal, you want to give an update on the parks in that area?
Jamal, just raise your hand for me so I know which person I need to unmute.
Hello?
There you are.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear
Good
you.
evening, everyone. So storm-related issues, majority of the properties in the district are clear of debris. East River and Corliss Hook were severely damaged by the storm. We still have staff on site, still removing debris. Right now, we're having significant staffing issues throughout the district. So bear with us regarding response time, because forestry right now for the Parks Department are based in Queens and Brooklyn, because they were hit the worst by the storm. We're having some serious issues with homeless issues at Saturday, Coleman, and East River, and capital projects. Luther Gullick and First Park are near completion. And that's it.
Okay. There's a lot going on in the parks. So I really want to keep the Q&A for the parks manager pretty brief. So I'm going to ask committee members first.
I just want to thank Jamil for the quick action in response to Corlier's Hook after we emailed him yesterday or the day before about issues there.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Currently, right now, we have a lot of equipment out of service. So we've been borrowing from other districts to get things done in District 3. So if you could bear with us, hopefully we get some stuff back next week so we can really start cutting throughout East River and Corliss Hook.
Okay. Any other committee members? And Michael, I can't see everyone's hand.
Nobody's raising their hand.
That's always the reason that they have broken equipment in Community Board 3.
Noted.
I see one hand raised from
Axia,
AIXA.
sorry, and Nancy Ortiz have been messaging me that they want to speak during public session.
Okay. AIXA, is your hand raised to ask a question for the parks manager or for a public session?
For public session.
Gotcha. And can you, AIXA and Nancy, do you want to speak before the agenda item or right now?
I want to speak now.
All right, I'm going to queue you up to the folks who are also going to speak now. First up is Marc Richardson. So if you can.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I'm Marc Richardson from Tenants United for Lower East Side. I'm just going to read an excerpt from a letter that we recently sent to the mayor's office, EDC, and the Department of Parks and Recreation regarding coastal resiliency. We are writing to you regarding several major waterfront projects within the Two Bridges neighborhood in Lower Manhattan. Specifically, the Brooklyn Montgomery Coastal Resiliency, East River Esplanade Package 4, the Brooklyn Bridge Esplanade, and the Upland Pier 42 projects. Members of the Two Bridges community have spent many years attending countless engagement meetings and Community Board 3 meetings to provide our input on all of these projects. We are in dire need of resiliency infrastructure to protect our neighborhood against the type of devastation experienced during Superstorm Sandy in 2012, as well as the more general vulnerabilities to climate change and already rising coastal waters. FEMA has identified a 100-year floodplain that encompasses over 24 buildings in the Two Bridges neighborhood, most of them residential. These projects are intended to provide protection for our entire community and are particularly important because many of our residents are among the most vulnerable for a variety of reasons. All of these projects were in various stages of planning and pre-construction, and they notably all rely upon a stream of federal funding. There was significant movement building to move these projects forward to recent months, but the current COVID-19 public health crisis has seen the EDC and other city agencies pivot to work-related COVID-19 response. We urge the City of New York, the EDC, the Mayor's Office of Resiliency, and the Department of Parks and Recreation to restart all resiliency projects as soon as possible so that they can remain on schedule, meet federal spending deadlines, and provide the protection the community deserves without more delays. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
No problem.
Next up is Grace Mack.
Hi, my name is Grace Mack. I'm a longtime resident mom with tonight I want to talk, actually, let me start. Tonight I want to talk about Pier 35 and the closing time, as well as the enforcement regulations. My name is Grace Mack. I am a longtime resident mom with 3 kids who lives at 82 Rutgers Slip, which is along Pier 35, the waterfront area. I'm also a co-founder of Pier 35, as well as a board member of Tough LES. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight about the issue. For my family's pastime, I enjoy taking my 3 kids and our grandparents to Pier 35 to ride on the gliders, the porch swings, go bicycle riding, scootering, blow bubbles, and sometimes attend special family Pier 35 sponsor events like face painting, balloon artists, and silent disco night. We enjoy going there because it's so tranquil, relaxing, and it's such a well-designed open recreational space. Nowadays, since probably the last couple of months since May, the beautiful, clean, safe pier that we come to love has drastically changed into a place where we witness open alcohol and drug use during broad daylight, very loud parties, on the evening nights, especially on the weekends, constant trash, trays of food left behind, broken glass, and everywhere. And many of the times, people would set up tables and open fire to block the open access of the passageway. This past Saturday, we experienced hearing continuous fireworks since 10 p.m. So we're asking and pleading for your help to please set a closing time and enforce pier regulations with more patrol. Please restore Pier 35 to what it was and what it was meant to be, a peaceful and safe place for families and seniors to enjoy their exercise, bike, and stroll along the waterfront.
Thank you, Grace. Sorry to cut you, but we're going to try and keep this at 2 minutes for everyone. I need to ask Christine from the Louise College Center if she wants to speak now or before the ESCR presentation.
Christine, you should be unmuted.
Thank you. Yes, I actually will not speak tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to move on. I assume that the other speakers want to speak in front of an item. We're going to change the agenda just to.
I'm sorry, I thought Aixa and Nancy said they wanted to speak now.
Okay, Aixa and Nancy. Aixa, I'll go with, I saw her hand first. You want to speak now?
Yes, and I'm gonna speak for Nancy and myself, and I'll try to keep it under 2 minutes. I'm gonna read what Nancy texted me to say on our behalf. Nancy Ortiz, president of the Atlantic Houses. EDC has to do better with engaging the waterfront developments. These meetings should be brought to the waterfront developments residents and include their input. This is because your meetings are where they are. I mean, we're doing virtual But when the meetings need to be done, they should be done by when we're physically meeting again, they should be done near our developments because we're the ones that live there. Not the people that live where you have it in Sarah Roosevelt Park. On behalf of the residents of Smith houses, I would like to echo the same sentiment. Our residents from Smith do participate. In fact, the last meeting that they had at 82 Rutgers at the Two Bridges Community Center, they started with 3 tables and had to put up another 6. Smith was definitely present at the meeting because people could walk to the meeting and be there. Some people took the bus, but it was very easy to get to. I think that if you want true community input, then the meetings need to be in our community where it's reachable, either by a quick bus ride or by people being able to walk to the meeting. That way we have a look at what's being said and done, and also to be part of the solutions and part of the process, and not be excluded like second-class citizens. Because as you know, most of the waterfront on the East River is public housing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alexa. And I do hear you. And when we resume meetings, because obviously the location you pointed out is very easy for me to get to, I'm going to see if we can get a meeting along the waterfront when we discuss particular items. Michael, was there anyone else?
No, those are the, yeah, that's it.
So next up, we're going to switch to move the EDC items, which are numbered probably from 2 on up first. It does seem like a lot, but they're all very related. So I believe Will is here from EDC, and he's going to give us an update on the status of the waterfront projects that run from Pier 42 to the Brooklyn Bridge.
Great. Yeah, so like Trevor said, this is going to be pretty quick. Good evening, everybody. My name is Will Fisher, New York City Economic Development Corporation, EDC. It's nice to see everybody again. Hope everyone is staying healthy and safe, having a nice summer. So last time I was here to speak with the committee, I was talking about how, as Mark mentioned in the excerpt from the letter that he read, how generally EDC had paused all of the projects that we're working on citywide in order to focus on COVID response. So like I mentioned at that meeting, EDC has been working with the city's Department of Health to manufacture test kits for COVID-19, to manufacture surgical gowns and face shields, et cetera. So we were prioritizing that and had paused capital construction projects such as the ones that I'm going to talk about here in a second. But we've heard from folks such as yourselves, and we were very glad to get letters from Community Board 3, from Tough LES, from the Lower East Side Power Partnership, as well as other correspondence from a lot of folks who are on the call today, asking that we resume the critical coastal resiliency projects as soon as possible, because obviously, it's critical to get those projects underway as quickly as we can. There's another hurricane season coming this year. This is top of mind for folks, in particular because of the federal spending deadline that's associated with those funds. So I'm really happy to report that as a result of the advocacy from folks in this room and from the groups that I mentioned, as well as others not on this call today, that we are going to be resuming design work for the BMCR Brooklyn Bridge to Montgomery Coastal Resilience Project that we actually resumed design about 2 or 3 weeks ago. We had a number of meetings in the past, I'd say 6 to 9 months, where we went to a number of the buildings down on the waterfront there, including Smith houses, including 82 Rutgers, including Lands End 2, to do individual conversations with buildings and tenant associations, as well as a meeting with the community board. So we have a lot of feedback that we gathered during that time. again, both from individual buildings and from Community Board 3. So we are going to be bringing a revised design submission to the September 10th meeting of this committee. So my updates here today are going to be pretty quick about going through all of the projects really briefly and just where each of them is in terms of the status. And then I hope folks can join us on September 10th, where we're going to be going through the most up-to-date designs for the resiliency project. To go quickly through the 4 projects that are on the list here. So beginning with BMCR, which again, we have a number of projects on the waterfront here. Obviously, we are prioritizing resiliency because public health and safety is obviously at the top of the list. Again, thank you to everybody who pushed us to continue the project. With that community advocacy, it really helped us to work with the rest of the city to get things moving. So the project has resumed work on the design phase. We are, again, coming back to Community Board 3, this committee with a preliminary design, an updated preliminary design on September 10th. This fall, we anticipate getting to the 75% design stage, which means we will be finishing up with the project design by early next year. And DDC, so EDC, that's me, is designing the project, while DDC, the Department of Design and Construction, is building the project. We are working really closely with them and including them in meetings, et cetera, so that we have a seamless transition handoff when we go from design to construction. But all signs still point towards beginning construction in next year, which is calendar year 2021. Trevor and others, should I go through all 4 of the projects, or should I take questions one by one?
Sorry, go through all 4.
Okay. Next, I'll talk about the East River Waterfront Esplanade Package 4, as well as Brooklyn Bridge Esplanade. So these are the Esplanade improvement projects that EDC has been constructing and that you all have seen phases of appear gradually along the waterfront. Package 4 is the section. Trevor, will you please remind me of the intersections between which Package 4 is?
Catherine, so about the Brooklyn Bridge.
Right. Thank you. So that section, which you've all seen, still between Pier 35 and the Brooklyn Bridge, still being under construction. That is because we were far along in construction, we are able to resume project work on that. So Hunter Roberts Construction Group, our contractor, is out there continuing to work. And we anticipate all of that project being done this fall. That's by November or December of this year. But since it's being completed in phases, as it is safe to open small individual phases of that project to the public, we'll continue to do so. So we're really excited to be finishing up with Package 4 this year, and we'll keep everybody updated with any progress on that. For Brooklyn Bridge Esplanade, which is the, everything between the Seaport area and a little bit north of the Brooklyn Bridge. That project, we had completed design earlier on this year before COVID, but because of the current fiscal situation, we have not yet been given authorization to proceed on that project. Like I mentioned before, obviously the city is in a difficult financial position. We, in terms of getting projects restarted, prioritized resiliency work and prioritized projects that were already under construction. So again, BMCR is moving. Package 4 of the Esplanade is moving because that was already under construction, but we have not yet been given approval to move forward on Brooklyn Bridge Esplanade. So we will keep you all updated with that. And then the last project that I have to update on sort of goes together with the updates that the ESCR team will give later tonight, including DDC and Parks. But EDC is going to be working on 2 projects at Pier 42. There's the permanent park on the on-land portion and a temporary activation of the deck, the overwater portion, which will serve as additional open space during the closure of East River Park for the East Side Coastal Resiliency Project. So in addition, because those projects, like I mentioned, have to do with resiliency work, we have been given the green light to proceed on those as well. So we anticipate beginning on Pier 42, we anticipate beginning bulkhead work, which is the seawall that runs along the edge of the upland parcel, as well as sewer work, which will tie into sewer work being done as part of East Side Coastal Resiliency. So we anticipate beginning sewer work and bulkhead work probably within the next month, probably just after Labor Day. So we're going to be beginning with the hard infrastructure work on Pier 42, and after that, continuing on to the park and everything that goes with the park. We anticipate completing that project in 2023, the Upland Park, and then the second part, which again is the temporary activation of the overwater deck. And again, it's going to serve as a temporary recreation area for folks who live in the neighborhood during the construction of East River Park. We anticipate that being ready in time for summer 2022. And those are the updates for the 4 projects.
Okay, thank you. Well, just to clarify, Pier 42 has 2 sections, and I know you mentioned it, and we'll get an update from ESDR with the upland and the temporary deck. Those are related but separate projects with different funding streams, correct?
That's correct.
I'm gonna go to committee members, and I guess the best way to do this is to raise hands for committee members.
Doesn't look like anyone on the committee has questions for Will.
And normally I would have a ton of questions, but we're trying to keep these meetings a little more manageable. So I'm just gonna keep it very brief, Will, since you're coming back in September. But I do have a concern about the Brooklyn Bridge Esplanade project, which obviously that entered design and ready to begin. My understanding is that had federal money also. And can you explain that federal money? Because the last thing we want to do in this environment is lose valuable federal dollars, since I don't think we're getting any more anytime soon. So can you explain that federal portion? And I believe the borough president and the council member also allocated funds for that.
Yeah, that's correct. So yeah, thank you for the question. All 4 of the projects I mentioned actually have federal funding involved, and all 4 of those projects have federal funding with deadlines associated with them. So generally, the way that that the sort of flow of money works when we're building projects like this with federal funding is that the agency spends the money first, and then the agency gets reimbursed by OMB at the city's Department of or Office of Management and Budget, and then OMB, the city, gets reimbursed by the federal government. So there's sort of a multi-step process there by which you complete the work, and then the federal government repays you for that work. So for the case of all 4 of these projects, but particularly Brooklyn Bridge Esplanade, which we are not able to start yet, yes, you're correct. There is federal funding involved. I don't have the spending deadline off the top of my head. Maybe you do. But there is funding from LMDC, that's the Lower Manhattan Development Corporation. They were awarded funds following 9/11 from HUD to do various improvement projects throughout Lower Manhattan and recovery projects. So there is indeed federal funding associated with that. We are working with OMB to see if we can get that project moving. Like I mentioned before, there are a number of sort of things that we prioritize. First and foremost is public health and safety and resiliency. So we were able to get the BMCR project moving, but we unfortunately still are working and don't have the green light on Brooklyn Bridge Esplanade. So we'll continue to keep you updated with that.
Yes, please just keep us updated. And if groups need to advocate for that, or resident associations, especially ones in the area, need to advocate for that, then we need to put the message out, because losing federal dollars is not something we want to do in this environment.
Absolutely. And sorry, I should have acknowledged, you're correct also that the borough president and the council member do have money in that project as well.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the hands I see raised, and the first one hand has been up for a minute, and that's Frank. And after Frank will be Dan T. Go ahead, Frank.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Frank,
Okay,
how are
sorry.
you?
Hey, good. How are you, Will? So thank you to the community board members here, and thank you, Will. So my question is going to be twofold. First, I'm going to piggyback on what Aisha and Nancy from Vladeck were speaking about, which is, I didn't hear it fully. I have bad internet here, but I think you said construction will begin, I'm referring to the Pier 42 in September. And if so, what I'm hoping is that I'd like to set up another a Zoom meet this time for Bougainvillea Gardens residents. And I request that maybe you reach out to other from LaGuardia and from Vladeck to set something, because if construction is going to begin, I think it would be really helpful for Bougainvillea to know exactly what's going on. I know that they probably have more specific questions because Bougainvillea Gardens really buttresses right up against Pier 42, but as well as at the entryway. And so we're going to have some questions that I think we could follow up on. And you were really great for you and Alda when you presented to us before this whole COVID really imploded. And I'd like to continue that before construction begins. So I ask you to reach out and set something up for us. And then my other question is related to the entryway, which is, I don't know whose jurisdiction it is, but I do have outstanding concerns about the security and about emergency response, because I think you might have recalled the image that I sent, and I do have others, where when we have a ambulance leaving the park area and going along that esplanade, and then we have police and fire trucks going in, and they're, this is it's not wide enough to move. So I'm just concerned, and I'd like to just hear, if not now, but in the nearest future as possible, what the plan is for that. So that's it. Thank you.
Great. Well, yeah, I think that's a completely reasonable request. I think, yeah, construction is beginning, honestly, a little sooner than we anticipated, because there is work within the Pier 42 project, the sewer and bulkhead work, which physically connects to work that's happening with ESCR. So we don't want to delay the ESCR project. Nonetheless, though, I'll circle back with the construction team, because I think once we have a better idea of what the permits look like, what the sort of times and dates, schedule of construction, I imagine that, we'll be able to talk about light and noise mitigations and that kind of stuff. We'll be happy to reach out and get together anybody who's interested in speaking further on that point. I think for the, thank you for, acknowledging that I may not have the answer right now, but, obviously it's very, very constrained there. At the entrance, you have the city facilities at Pier 36. You have the excursion vessels leaving from Pier 36. You have Basketball City, you have the park, and you have construction sites. So, there's not all converging right there at once. And I think it's, I'm sure that the DDC and park, would echo this in saying that it's going to be a challenge, but, obviously we need to tightly control access in and out of that area and ensure health and safety for both the residents who live upland and across the FDR from there, but also, folks who are in the park who need to get to emergency services. So I will get back in touch with the construction team and see if there's a potential for, for speaking in greater detail about the construction mitigation. And I might request as well that we use the form of Community Board 3 for that. I think that could be good depending on what the timing is of the next meeting of this committee and when construction starts, because I know it's after Labor Day, but I'm not sure how far after Labor Day.
Well, I want to also add that we've raised the issue of that entrance for quite some time. It's been years. I thought we had a design, and Basketball City had their own design. So maybe not in September, but at some point I want to raise it as a separate agenda item, because that's it's not just dangerous for emergency vehicles, it's dangerous for pedestrians and bikes alone, and we really haven't talked about a solution or implemented anything since.
No, absolutely. And if you don't mind me addressing that really quickly. So again, because there's so many projects happening there with ESCR, Pier 42 Upland, Pier 42 Deck, the resiliency projects and the given that there's a lot of underground infrastructure associated with that, including sewer work, we've been working with the partner agencies to stage that work. So the basketball city, the sort of pedestrian drop-off area that you were just mentioning, that will come after the underground infrastructure construction has concluded at that site. So that's going to happen after Pier 42 is built, most likely. But I'd be happy to give you an update on any more specifics with timing, but that's the best I know right now.
Sure, thank you. And to Frank's point, their ESCR will also talk about construction mitigation as part of the overall project because Pier 42 is included. So you have the additional layer of the ESCR mitigations. The next hand I see is Dan T, and then Aixa, and then Mark.
Hi, so my question has to do with the upland, sorry, not the upland, the overwater portion of Pier 42. And when will the community see what the temporary programming will look like and have any input on that, as well as why, if it's temporary and probably not that much, why can it be available by next summer, 21? Thanks.
Great. So, and I'll speak first, and if the Parks Department would like to add anything, please feel free, Alda. Yeah, so they're good questions. We did jointly with the Parks Department come, and I don't remember when it was exactly, but we came with a design presentation for the deck activation project. I believe it was sometime in the spring earlier this year. I want to say maybe February, but I could be wrong. But nonetheless, I can make sure that I can distribute that presentation around again, or send it to Trever, who can send it out. Just to make sure that you see what we presented and some of the comments we received. Regarding the activation, you're correct in that it is, we are doing it in a temporary fashion in order to make it quicker to implement. But unfortunately, it does rely on our completing of some of the bulkhead work and sewer work upland, because pedestrians to get to the temporary deck are going to have to cross what is essentially going to be another construction zone. So for a combination of completing work that is in the way of people accessing that deck and doing the work on the deck itself, unfortunately, it is pushed out to summer 2022. We were delayed on that project, as you can imagine, because of COVID, something like 4 or 5 months. So we are scrambling to try to keep on schedule here, and we're confident that summer 2022 is within reach. But we do have other work upland that we have to do in order to make it safe for park attendees to get out to the deck.
Well, I know you've presented that same design and gotten input from Gouverneur Gardens. Is that design available on the website?
I will send you the current version. I'm not sure the version that we presented at that time probably is. I think PDC gave some comments, so I'll make sure that you have the latest.
Hi, this is Alda. I just want to say that I actually have a slide showing the design later on.
That's right. That's what I was going to say, is that we're going to leave any further questions to the next presentation. This was mainly about EDC projects from Pier 42, just a summary of everything. So we're going to get into a little more detail about that interim deck in the next presentation. But I want to go to Aixa and then Mark for questions. Aixa.
Okay, so my question is, when is our backyard in Smith going to be totally clean? When I passed through the other day, it was a little bit better, but it's still the access to the waterfront for the residents in Smith. And given that this is a pandemic, one more time, one of the things that people really need to have is some fresh air. Salt air is the best in the world to make sure that people's lungs are clear. I have a lot of seniors, and it looks like a junkyard. A better young junkyard, but it still looks like a junkyard in my eyes. And the access to the river is really confounding. And really, Parks Department should ask DOT to put a light on the corner of Wagner Place so that people can cross safely to the river. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you, Acting Well.
Yeah, so it's a very good point. I think, you know, it's clear that open space and access to the outdoors and access to the waterfront is more important than ever. Like I mentioned before, it has been a series of difficult conversations with OMB in terms of getting various projects started after we were forced to put them on pause because of the pandemic and associated fiscal problems with the pandemic. We did prioritize in those conversations the resiliency work, so we are happy to be moving forward with BMCR, with the coastal protection work, which is what we prioritize in those conversations. But you know, we're certainly still pushing for to be able to move forward on Brooklyn Bridge Esplanade as soon as we can. There is the federal funding there. Unfortunately, I don't have a date right now because, you know, we are still waiting to get approval to move forward on that. But you know, definitely take your point. It makes a whole lot of sense. And you know, we were glad to come speak with you all about BMCR, and you know, I hope we can keep in touch regarding the timing of all of this. So I'll keep you updated.
And Will, to that point, when did you say that package 4 was going to be complete? Because a portion of that obviously extends at Catherine Slip.
Right, so package 4 should be complete by this fall. And like I mentioned, to open portions of that as they're completed, since it may be bit by bit, but all of it will be completed by this fall.
At Isa's point, because I walk that, or I used to walk that every day, area is a bit challenging, and it has turned back into a parking lot for government emergency employees. And anytime you open up a little bit of space and find parking spots. So I know that's EDC's responsibility. I don't know how all of a sudden there are 100 cars there parked there right now. But we want to make sure that it doesn't stay that way on these sections.
More pollution for the residents in South Pretty Smith houses who, today's not a good day for me. This week we lost a young man, 9/11 related causes. And so bringing more pollution to our community is not acceptable. So I just want to leave it at that, because you know, he was old enough to be my child. And so I would just say that cleaning the backyard of Smith should be prioritized like yesterday. And we would appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, that, and I think in regard to, and specifically in regards to the parking, we were really glad to be able to work with this committee to remove, I think, 70 parking spaces from the design of that project under the Esplanade in order to create more open space. So, you know, thank you all for your patience, and, you know, appreciate your understanding of the delays due to COVID, but, you know, we are hoping to get to work as soon as possible. It's going to be a great project down there once we're done. So thank you.
We have another question from Marc Richardson.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, how are you? So I guess I'm happy to hear that you guys are resuming some work, but I guess my question is, it sounds by implication that there are some things that won't be resuming that otherwise might be if we were not in the pandemic situation. So I guess my question is, you know, forgive me if you've already pointed this out in previous answers. What are the things that you think that you're not able to resume due to the pandemic that might be at risk due to these funding deadlines? And is there any discussion of that and any like mitigation being contemplated around managing those risks?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your question, Mark. I think, yeah, I mean, the quite frankly, the funding deadlines are an issue. I think we were glad to be able, for 3 of the 4 projects that I discussed here tonight, which again all have federal funding, we were glad to be able to resume work after only 3 months of pause on those, so that we are able to move forward, in order to use the federal funding in time. But yeah, like you said, for Brooklyn Bridge Esplanade, which is still on pause, we are in kind of a tight spot there. And you know, for everybody's background, you know, it's no secret, but you know, the mayor as of a few months ago announced that due to sort of the economic slowdown associated with coronavirus, that the city was facing a $9 billion with a B, $9 billion deficit between fiscal years 20 and 21. So it is a real challenging moment for the city. And, you know, obviously keeping basic city services as well as health and safety projects that promote health and safety and resiliency are number one on the priority list. But of course we are, you know, especially when there is money on the table that we do need to use by a certain time, you know, as we can. I will add as well that we've been working closely with Congressmember Velasquez's office in particular, as well as Senator Schumer's office and Senator Gillibrand's office to advocate for an extension to the federal funding deadline for the resiliency work. Because, you know, there have been across the country for every agency that is implementing these sorts of resiliency projects using this funding, everybody's obviously had, you know, pretty significant delays due to COVID. So we've been working with the federal delegation as well to push for some additional time. But nonetheless, we're point well taken. We're proceeding on 3 of the 4 projects that have federal funding in this area, and we hope to get back to work on the 4th one soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
See one last question from Christina, and before Christina goes, I see a message from, and forgive me if I mess up your name, Patricia. If you could put in the chat box what agenda item you'd like to speak on. But let's go to Christina, and I think that Michael, do you see any more hands raised after that one?
That's the last one.
Okay, Christina.
Hi.
Hi, Christina, how are you? Nice to see you.
Good. Nice meeting you too. Just had 2 quick questions. I know it's been a while since we've seen any sort of like design. Where can we go to find like the latest presentation that you have? Because I went to newyorkcity.gov/LMCR and I don't see any of the PDFs up there, or the PowerPoint presentations rather. And so that's my first question. And then the second question is, I mean, I think, like, you know, the residents of Knickerbocker Village would be interested in having, you know, a meeting with you on the design project as well. And I guess this is like a general question, like, I don't know if you have the answer to it, but a lot of the residents here don't necessarily have access to Zoom or like a computer. So I don't know, like, you know, how can we make it a meeting where we can get as many people to participate as possible? And those are my questions. Thank you.
Right, absolutely. Great questions. So first, the presentations that we gave, so actually first regarding the design and updates to the design. So the round of outreach that we did, which included 4 buildings along the waterfront as well as Community Board 3, lasted more or less from October of 2019 to February of this year. So we had that sort of 4 months of working with the community and getting feedback on the projects. And then the design team and engineers were working in March to incorporate some of those changes. And unfortunately, at that point in March, we had to go on pause, or we went on pause in kind of early April. So we're just picking back up, unfortunately, March and April. We should have the updated designs on the September 10th meeting of this committee. So next time, or next month, we'll be back here to present the updates since that time, since we heard a lot of feedback on the programming and on, you know, what sorts of play equipment and benches, et cetera, should be used on the waterfront. So the next big update will be on September 10th. Currently, folks who are here on the call and the general public can find all of the presentations we've given on BMCR on our website, and that's, I'm sorry, I can't put it in the chat box, right, for everybody to see.
Well, you can put it in the chat box to me, and then I can send it out to everybody in the meeting.
Okay, great. I'll do that. So I'll put the link in the chat box. But so yeah, all of the presentations that we gave on BMCR during the most recent round of public outreach are on our website. So I just sent Michael the link, and if you scroll to the bottom, there's a list of PDF presentations. So the regarding access, I think, yeah, it's a huge challenge, Christina. And I think, you know, all of us in this room are kind of contemplating this, like, how do we ensure that, you know, folks, especially seniors and other folks who might not have access to Zoom, and folks who don't speak English as their first language, how can we make sure that everybody has access? You know, we are really looking forward to getting back in person and doing in-person meetings, but until that time, you know, we are sort of constricted to online, but we do have translation services available through our design contract. So if there are particular design materials that anybody would like to see translated, so that others can view that. And also anything on our website can be printed out and shared with neighbors. So I think, Christine, it's a great question. We really want to make sure that we're reaching as many people as possible right now. Unfortunately, we do have a lot of restrictions in place around public gatherings, but you know, we do appreciate any feedback and any help that you all can provide in helping us get the word out on all of these projects.
With that, we're going to thank you all. We'll see you in September. You'll have some of those spending deadlines available to contemplate for not only projects that are funded, but also for the Brooklyn Bridge Esplanade, which is a project that is not restarted. So thank you. I know you may need to stay on, but we're going to move to the CR presentation.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Parts. Thank you, Will.
So, Parks, who's doing this presentation? They have a PowerPoint. Do I need to give them access to show it?
I think DDC is going to go first, and then I will. We have two presentations.
So DDC, who's?
Trevor,
do you want to do Val's question?
Mike, can you hear me, Mike? Can everybody hear me?
I can hear you, Hugh. Hold on one second. Trevor?
Okay.
Yes.
Val wanted to ask her a question prior to this presentation. Do we want to do that now?
Sure, let's do it now.
Wasn't a question. Are we up to the ESCR? I wanted to do my public before then.
Yeah, so you're up.
Okay. I'm here on behalf of the Lower East Side Power Partnership. We sent a letter on July 29th about the sound from the planned East River Park Amphitheater, which is part of the East Side Coastal Resiliency Project. The concern was that acoustics be arranged so that none of the apartment complexes that would have to endure events where the sound in the apartment from the amphitheater is so loud that it sounds like the resident is on stage, which sometimes happens now. We received a response from a representative of DDC, and it says, since this issue was first raised, DDC and Parks team have taken a look at the history of the events at the outdoor amphitheater and worked with the design consultants at AKRF to observe and assess noise. Associated with that a lot of the noise, we found that many of the past instances of excessive noise was associated with unpermitted outdoor open air events or events. Operational controls such as establishing a not to exceed noise level for amplified sound at the amphitheater and enforcement of compliance by New York City Parks PEP are the primary solutions to responding to noise concerns. New York City Parks is willing to engage in discussions with LESPP, Community Board 3, and other local stakeholders about what a feasible set of practices and thresholds should look like as this project progresses. So the Lower East Side Power Partnership looks forward to working with the city to ensure that we don't have that noise issues are addressed, because that's very important for the quality of life of the people that live over here. I can tell you, I live over here, and when there's something at the amphitheater, it's like it's in my apartment. So we look forward to working with them, and we thank them for a response. Thank you.
Thanks, Val.
Yep, thank you.
So Q, I muted you because of background noise, so you need to hit *6 to unmute yourself again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Great. Hi, everyone. Q Amiri from DVC Coastal Resiliency. Thank you, Val. Thank you so much for that note and bringing that up and the updates. We're also looking forward to working with you and everybody else on this amphitheater noise issue. I totally agree and understand that it's a nuisance. It has been and it will continue to be if we don't figure out a way to address it. There's, as I mentioned, there's some things that we can do with design, but that's not the only solution, unfortunately, to this issue. Most of it, some of it is design, some of it is operational. So it's a collective sort of effort that we'll have to work together and figure it out. So to be continued on that, it's ongoing efforts, obviously the amphitheater design and the rest of that. I want to quickly kick us off with the first slide. Mike, I'm not able to share my screen, and I don't know if you have it up or not. I'm calling through my cell phone.
Nobody ever sent me slides, so I don't have anything to show.
He wants to share a screen, Michael. Hold on 1 second. Can he share a screen, Michael, or is that too complicated?
I'm not able to, so I'll just have my team do that. So Desiree, do you think you can share the screen, or Leah?
He's on the phone. He can't share a screen.
Gotcha.
So tell me who I need to give access to, and they'll be able to share a screen.
Give me 1 moment.
Is that Leah Wenner?
Yes. 1 second.
Leah, now.
Leah, please check your screen. Please check your screen before you share it.
Did I do something wrong, Trevor?
No, we've. It's not you. It's the. I think sometimes people don't realize that their screen is on.
Q, I have the presentation as well. This is Alda, so I can just share my screen if that works. Just tell me what slide.
Okay, thanks, Alda.
All right.
Yeah, I think just slide 2, please, with what we
We
first
need to get it up first, so hold on, Q, before we get the screen up.
Okay, Aldo, you should have ability to do that now.
There we go.
Okay, great. So not much, we just wanted to put this up for everybody's reference. There's not much of an update, not many major updates that we have to share this month based on what we presented last month. We're still in the procurement, sort of pre-construction phase, and we're waiting for the contractor's contract to get registered and get their notice to proceed out so they can have the green light to start the sort of pre-construction activities, which includes giving us their schedule and starting to develop their plans, everything that we talked about last month. And I put all those in here as a reminder for everybody and wanted to reiterate that really the bulk of the work, that's the reason that we're not able to answer a lot of the questions right now is really pending on the contractor formally being able to be on board and provide us with their first round of deliverables. And from there, we'll be able to provide more details, the schedule, kickoff dates, when the time frame of the first mobilization and construction activities will take place, what the dust control, air quality, noise mitigation, all those plans will look like. Everything the dominoes will start falling from that point on, and we'll be able to share all that as we move forward. So again, just wanted to ask for everybody's patience and bear with us a little longer. We're getting closer to these milestones that will allow us to share more information. And this page is just a summary of responses that we provided in the past few weeks, couple months. Wanted to just have it up here as a reminder that the project hasn't been, as we are right now, the project really hasn't been impacted by COVID. Overall, the flood protection system is still still being planned to be delivered within time frame, and our funding is still in place and committed. Federal funding, city funding, everything has been committed, and so far there hasn't been any impact that we know. But again, we need to wait for the contract to come on board, and the city is assessing COVID's impact. Obviously, everybody knows, on multiple different levels in multiple different areas. One of them is our industry, the building construction industry, and need to wait and give it a little more time to understand the sort of overall impacts that COVID has had on major infrastructure and capital projects like ours and many others out there. So we'll be sure to keep everybody updated on what, as information becomes available. Overnight construction is also a major concern for everybody. We totally understand, and we really appreciate everybody's commitment to the neighborhoods and following up on questions and concerns, and just asking again for a little patience and time to bear with us so we can get these questions properly answered when we have the appropriate people on board. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to my consultant team, HNTV and Lero. They're our program managers for construction. They've been brought on board towards the end of last year to help DDC manage the construction of this project and oversee the contractor's activities and everything that goes with it. And there's a core group of community engagement folks that we have here. Desiree Gazzo from HNTV Lero Group is going to walk us through some of these slides. We have short slides, just maybe another 5-10 minutes, but also we have a few other team members that would jump in and walk through the bullet points. Again, not much has changed since our last presentation, but we wanted to get a few minor updates out there and mainly make sure we're available for questions. And we'll be back again next month and the following months as we continue. So with that, Mike, if you can unmute Desiree, or if she can do it, *6.
She should be able to do it.
And after that, okay, great. After that, it'll be John Lynch and I think Leah, and from my team, DDC, Ophelia Rivas and Faye Lee would also be jumping in and available for questions too. Thanks, everyone.
Great.
Desiree, you have it?
Thank you, Q. Trevor, yep.
Thanks.
Trevor, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can all hear you okay.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you. And I apologize. Normally I have my video camera on, but I am in a low service area, so I can't do that right now. So thanks, Q, for kicking that off. If you can go to the next slide, Alda, that would be great. Perfect. Thank you. So just on the left-hand side of this slide is essentially what Q had mentioned in the previous slide. As mentioned at the last month's meeting, the construction plans will be submitted by the contractor for review and approval, and that kind of includes the site safety and public health plans and some of the other noise and air plans. So again, until the contractors are on board, we will not get their plans until that happens. Just for an update on the construction scope and the estimated timeframes, again, much as this is a repeat, but for the early package, which is scheduled for construction start in September of 2020, the relocation of the Lessick compost yard operations, DDC is coordinating with the mayor's office, DSNY, and Parks on that. So once that happens, then the DDC contractor could come in and then do the site prep and the interim lawn and the tree transplants. So after the relocation and after the coordination, that is when the DDC contractor will actually start the construction. For PA2, again, we have kind of the tentative schedule and the phasing that we presented back in January to the community boards. And then an updated schedule is pending notice to proceed for the contractor. We do have an update, again, it's a tentative update on the different parts of PA2. So again, tentative pending the contractor notice to proceed. Asser Levy is looking like it may fall around fall 2020 to fall 2021. Stuyvesant Cove, fall 2021 to 2023. And then Murphy Brothers, fall 2022 to June 2024. Again, you know, we actively tried to phase the construction so that not all parks would be offline at the same time. So we are kind of doing this phased approach. With Stuyvesant Cove, then we'll have kind of 2 phases within its own phase. For project area 1, again, that's scheduled for a late fall start. It's currently in procurement. And then the parallel conveyance project, that time frame is to be determined. And again, once we have that for you, we will come back and notify you of that. So I am going to now pass to Melissa Johnson, who's going to give you an update on the community engagement efforts and strategies. Thank you.
Thanks, Desiree. And Alda, if you could advance to the next slide, that would be great. Thank you. As part of the Side Coastal Resiliency Project, we have a very robust community engagement strategy and program for the project. A big part of that program is that we have a Section 3 and MWBE subconsultant on board, and there is currently a plan in development to ensure that Section 3 and MWBE firms and hiring is considered throughout the project, and that consultant will be attending future community board meetings and CAG meetings, and we will have a large presence at different events throughout the course of the project to ensure that we are fulfilling those goals. As part of our outreach to stakeholders and the local community, our strategy includes a couple of key communication tools, including a website, a web-based public inquiry tool where the public can contact the project team and the community construction liaisons that are assigned to the project. So through the website, which will be launching in September, and that public inquiry tool, we will be able to push out information about the project and also make sure that any questions, any inquiries about the project are answered in a timely manner and accurately, because they're going to the right places through this public inquiry tool that we have that will be available through the website. Our community construction liaisons will be introduced at future community board meetings. There are currently 2 CCLs starting in the near future, and they are multilingual, Spanish speaking and Chinese speaking. A big part of our outreach strategy early on too is our construction fencing art program, which is under development. We'll be launching a community art contest in the fall, and winning entries for that contest will be placed on our construction fencing, which will be surrounding the park and other various sites that are under construction as part of the ESCR project. And we'll be presenting a little bit more about that at our next meeting. Also, as part of the project, we have in mind a community information center. Right now, we are assessing a few different options with that due to the current COVID situation. So we are looking at possible shorter term spaces as opposed to going right into a long-term space, considering social distancing. And Alda, if you could advance to the next slide, that would be great. And I will turn it back over to Q to lead the questions. I'm sorry, to the rest of the HNTB team.
Thank you for that update. And I just want to, before we get on to the next item, just remind everyone that we are bringing this team in every month, and they've been here to the community board every month. At least a year and a half, and they will be back next month. So we're going to try and keep the questions limited to what we are discussing. And if you have something you'd like to ask them to bring to the next meeting, to put it in the chat box. But I'm going to go to committee members first, and I see Kay has her hand raised. Kay.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I have two questions. One is still wondering if there's confirmation on the plans to return the compost pile from Lower East Side Ecology to this space or any space within the East River Park area. And two is, I remember a January 23rd, 2019 City Council hearing where Councilmember Marc Levine questioned very hard Lorraine Grillo of DDC to confirm that the monies for this park would be assured, and that's why they weren't going to do the state alienation plan. So I'm just wondering, thoughts on that, and is this money guaranteed? I mean, we were afraid of extenuating circumstances, like who knew it was going to be this pandemic, but we were assured that there would be money. So your thoughts?
This is Alda from Parks. I will take a first stab at answering. I think Q had to drop off, but Faye and Ophelia from DDC are here and can fill in for anything that I have not addressed. So on your first issue, Kay, about the East River Park and Lower East Side Ecology Center and return of compost, the big picture, what's happening is we have signed, so the Lower East Side Ecology Center's existing license with the Parks Department for use of premises at East River Park had expired on August 3rd. We did sign an extension with them to get through to the transition period for both the Seward Park educational uses as well as moving the compost uses. As part of that agreement that was signed, we did include language about entering good faith negotiations about Lower East Side Ecology Center's general return to East River Park. More specifics will have to come out of the negotiations as part of that license agreement, but that is included as part of the overall premises of the latest conversations that we've had with the Lower East Side Ecology Center. So that's what I have on East River Park and the compost. On money for this project overall, yes, that is committed. The funding is there. We're still moving forward with this project. I don't know if anyone from DDC has anything to add.
Thanks, Alda. Correct. Hi, everyone. This is Ophelia Rivas. So just so we're clear,
Ophelia, you're from where?
From DDC Intergovernmental Affairs. So just so we're clear, we were allocated federal funding, which has been secured, and also city council, the city funding. In terms of the way the budget works, once something is allocated to a city project, it is locked in. So you can't, for example, you can't move it to another pot. Once it's passed, the money's there, and you can only use it for whatever is allocated, and we secured that. So it's secure. As far as we know, we're moving along with the project, and no COVID impacts have been made thus far, and that's why a lot of projects have been stopped because of COVID. But if you realize, ESCR continued, and we're going to continue to push the project along because flood protection is important.
Thank you. Will you make sure that as the negotiations go forward with Lower East Side Ecology Center, that our chair is also immediately informed? Because while the Lower East Side Ecology Center has its, needs to have that conversation with you, it does impact the community, which we have a separate compelling interest with all that goes on. Thank you.
Yes. Kay, to your point, because this is a big item, I'm going to ask that this be a separate agenda item for September, as opposed to discussing it under myriad of issues that we have in ESCR. So more than likely, we'll have a whole agenda item for that in September.
Trever, board members with their hands up include Carolyn Radcliffe and Valentina Jones.
It's Carolyn. Or you said Carolyn or Carlin?
Carolyn.
Carolyn?
Okay, my first question is, it was my understanding that DDC plans to begin this September implementing Project 1. Is that the installation of floodgates from Avenue C to 14th Street to 25th Street? Okay, as a frame of reference, when you presented plans to CB3 Parks about the area of Brooklyn Bridge, Montgomery Street, they showed us detailed drawings of the type of flood barriers they plan to install along the waterfront. Okay, we've never had anything presented to CB3 Parks that indicated what type of flood barriers you're planning on installing. From the slide that I just saw, it seems like now that your fate or your Project 1 begins around Asser Levy. So could you please explain?
Yeah, I can jump in. This is John Lynch. I'm with HNTB Lero, working with DDC. So to answer, and thanks for your question. The first project that's out is what we're calling the PA2 project that Q had shown on the slide. So we have a low bid contractor for that. He hasn't been given a notice to proceed yet. We're waiting for that. But that is the area from 15th Street to 25th Street. And I think you were asking that you haven't seen details of what the wall looks like. Unlike, is that right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
So, right. So
he showed us very specific, plans for the area south of Montgomery. Okay.
Yeah.
DDC has never shown us a specific plan for the area from 14th Street to 25th Street.
Okay. Yeah, I understand your question. So further south in the park's being raised a number of feet in order to provide flood protection. So the flood wall itself is actually, there's no wall there in many of the locations.
There were multiple gates is what they were showing.
Right. But for 15th Street to 25th Street, it's above grade to a certain elevation, to the flood elevation. And it'll consist of a concrete wall above sheeting, and then it'll have gates where we do things like cross the FDR Drive or cross city streets. There'll be either swing or roller gates to enclose in the case of an event.
All right, when are you going to show us what the plans for it and what it looks like?
Yeah, I think we can do that. We can circle back with Q. We have the construction plans. We have a low bid contractor, so we have a full set of drawings for that we could provide.
So when are you
well,
going
the flood walls were shown in the PDC presentation. Carolyn.
To her point, we have seen those flood walls. They are from 15th to 25th. It wasn't a long PDC presentation that we had. It was a very long presentation. However, our focus was obviously for CB3. I know CB6 has been shown in those presentations, but if you want to drop a link for that, I did see it today earlier. If you want to drop a link for that actual presentation in the chat box, and Michael can send it out to everyone.
That would be really nice. Okay, my second question is, okay, you have shown two maps at a WebEx meeting that showed the phasing for the construction for the East River Park. I've asked for those maps to be shown to the Parks Committee so that we have some idea of what we're facing with the time frame. And I was told that you couldn't release those maps because the contractor hadn't been chosen yet. But I really do think that it's unfair to the residents of this neighborhood for you not to share those maps. So when are you going to be able to share them?
Carolyn, which maps are you referring to? Are you talking about the phasing of the construction?
Yes, I'm talking about the phasing of the construction.
Okay, those are also on the website. We'll share that link as well. That was shared with CB3 Parks back in December. There were slides that showed the plans of the phasing stages of construction.
Right, when they were shown at the WebEx meeting and in the July meeting, when I asked about why those maps weren't being shown, I was told that they couldn't be shown because the contractor hadn't been hired yet. I did check.
Well, we don't have plans yet related to the construction, but we did have the phasing stages of what will be done in what areas when.
Okay.
We'll reshare
the website. Okay, I couldn't find it. I checked CB6 website. I couldn't find anything there either.
So at any rate, I would appreciate a link as to where those maps would be available.
Sure, I'll share the link to the PDC deck that will show you the flood wall, and I'll share the link to the deck that showed the phasing stages slides.
Yes, I would appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And also for the September meeting, I'm just going to ask if you have any updates to that map. I know they have changed a bit, but provide as much as you can in September, because I know they've been updated somewhat.
All right. And the third phase of your project is the parallel conveyance system. It's listed as being the final phase of the project. From what's been presented in the past, it's supposed to run from Corlear's Hook, where the receptor gate is to be located underneath the Sword Park housing parking lot, then underneath the Williamsburg Bridge to Columbia Street, Avenue D to East 10th Street, across Avenue C to 14th Street. Okay, and now you're saying that the time frame for that hasn't been determined yet?
John, does the phasing timeline show the parallel conveyance work?
Yeah, so this is John Lynch from HNTV, Lero again. So of the four projects you're referring to, the parallel conveyance project, and that one has not yet gone out to bid. So that one hasn't gone out to the potential bidders yet, unlike the other three projects where they're either we haven't received. For the big park, we haven't received bids yet, but it's in procurement. This one's about to go into procurement for the PC package. So I don't know. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but it's the timelines to be determined because we haven't yet let the contract out, and after you do that, then the contractors you'll have a time frame, but you don't know exactly when you're going to take the bids for the project and when you'll get to construction.
Thank you.
Right,
John, just to that.
Something that's going to disrupt our neighborhood a lot. And I think people sort of would like to have some frame of reference about what they're going to be dealing with and when.
Yeah, of course. So usually, typically, whenever the bid packages as they're coming out and as we get the contractors on, we come back to the community with consistent updates. However, with this, it takes time, as you know, to create a contract, to put out a bid. It has to go through legal. And then we have to get the contractors to bid on the project to see. So it's a lot of legal, a lot of back and forth. So it's not a quick process. Be patient with us. As soon as we have that available, we'll always come back and share, in a timely manner, as we've been doing with the other packages. So we hear you and we understand.
Right. Well, one of the major concerns for our neighborhood are the storm sewers and how they're going to connect to the parallel conveyance system. Okay, because right now those storm sewers empty into the East River. My understanding with the construction that you're planning for the ESCR is that the support, the bulwarks, will go all the way down to the bed of the river. So are there going to be outlets in that for the streams to empty into the river as they do now? Or are the streams being connected into the parallel conveyance system? Because when I've asked questions about the streams in the past, I've sort of been blown off. And considering the fact that my neighborhood is intersected by myriad streams, I'd sort of like to get an answer.
John, do you want to take that one?
You're asking about the scope of the PC package?
I'm asking whether or not if the storm sewers are going to feed into the parallel conveyance system. My understanding from the way the storm sewers work presently is that they go into the East River, and that there are outlets within the bulwark that allow the water to access the river. Okay, so if you're building a solid wall from the bed of the river up to support the new park, okay, that will no longer be possible unless you're installing outlets. Or are you instead having the storm sewers diverted into the parallel conveyance system, which will feed into the receptor gate? That is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I think the intricacies of the design for parallel conveyance, which is going to help drainage in the area, we would have to go back to the designer to answer your question, I think. I don't think
I would like that question answered.
Carolyn, let's do this because there are quite a few hands raised, including community.
Right, that's fine, Trevor. That's the bulk of my questions.
I hear you on that parallel conveyance issue, and I'm going to ask for that to be a topic for September, because this was just supposed to be an update, because we have a lot of things on the agenda, and the main focus was supposed to be interim recreation, and I know the whole team isn't here to answer those questions.
Sure.
So I'm going to go next to Michael. I'm sorry, I don't know who's next.
Val's the only other board member with her hand up.
Hi, I have two questions. You said the community construction liaison. I just wanted to know their education or expertise background. And there was a point where I thought it went to like 25th and didn't go to Bellevue. And then I saw something that said it did go to Bellevue. And I think that, you know, for anybody that knows anything about healthcare and emergency rooms, Bellevue is one of the top 10 emergency rooms in the country. Bellevue's OR is right there on the first floor. If they got the patient into the building, the staff, we got them taken care of because they got taken care of on the first floor. So you never really heard that somebody had a problem on the way to the OR. The OR was right inside the door. So that's my two questions: the community construction liaison, their education background, and whether you're addressing Bellevue. Because I think the other thing is Bellevue is, I can't remember the exact title, but the fire department and the police department have some kind of special wording for Bellevue because of just what an excellent emergency room that is, and just how well they took care of any patient that got through the door. Thank you.
So I can take the first question about the CCLs. So CCLs are community construction liaisons. The liaisons that we have chosen for this project are senior liaisons who have worked on DDC projects before, who have also worked on New York City DOT projects. So they are experienced in community outreach and working with local communities to resolve issues that come up on projects. One of our CCLs has an urban planning background, and the other has a background in cultural conflicts and has worked with several different assembly members' offices in the past, sort of as a district liaison. So generally, you know, they are very community oriented. And for this particular project, because it is a large, high profile project, the CCLs are very experienced ones who have done this work before for DDC and other agencies.
So you said the first one, urban planning. What was the second one?
Cultural conflicts.
Oh, cultural. Okay. And you said they speak Spanish.
One is Spanish speaking and one is Chinese speaking.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. Oh, what about Bellevue?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Tia.
Yeah, to answer the second part of your question, this is John again from HNTB Lero. The project ends at the VA hospital right by Absolute. So it doesn't go that far north.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Hey, Val? Val?
Yeah.
Oh, this is Faye. Right, our escrow project goes up to 25th Street, and the flood wall will join the VA wall at 24th. But there is going to be a separate project for Bellevue where they're also building a flood wall around their hospital. So there's a project underway that will protect them, and it's separate from escrow.
Okay, great. But it's underway. So we're looking out for Bellevue and the fire department, police department. Thank you. That's excellent. That's an excellent emergency room. Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, it's almost going to be continuous because escrow ends on 25th. I mean, it joins the VA wall at 24th, but our project limit goes up to 25th, and I think Bellevue is going to build their flood wall from like 25th to 30th. And then NYU has, it'll be almost like a...
Right, we've discussed this, and I get it, because we kind of want to keep this focus on CB3. There will be a flood wall at that hospital. The project ends at 24. But I want to give the people...
Trever, CB3 big time goes to Bellevue. One of the biggest populations that goes to Bellevue is CB3.
I understand, Val, but in previous discussions... Val, I understand, but in previous discussions, which we've done and we've discussed many times, we've talked about the flood wall at the VA hospital. They have their own flood wall system that will integrate in the ESCR. That is nothing new. That is something that's been going on for quite some time. So they're building their own system. And I really want to give a chance to the folks who have their hands raised.
I just think it's important. I think saving a life is important.
All right, so let's go to the next. Michael, do you see the next person?
Yeah, Tony Alfieri.
Is that a board member? I'm sorry.
No, sorry, we're going to the public now.
Were there any other board members?
No.
So
Great,
for the public who want to ask, we're going to give you a chance. Just keep in mind that you have other neighbors who are in line to speak, and we still have agenda items, and they will be coming back every month. So thank you, Tony. Go ahead.
Thanks. I understand that the contract calls for the contractor to work out the details of the schedule and the sequencing in conjunction with the DDC after the time of award. But I was wondering what kinds of constraints have been built into the contract? Like, is there a clause for liquidated damages, or are there incentives for early completion? Thanks.
I think I'm back on mute. No, can you guys hear me? This is John again.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, there are liquidated damages built into the contract. They're both for substantial completion, meaning the end of the project, but there will also be associated with the completion of the 3 parks in the PA2 area. And there are incentives built into the contract as well.
Sorry, I don't mean to follow, but can you share those with the community or no?
Well, the contract hasn't been, the notice to proceed hasn't been given. So if DDC wants to share that information, they can. I'm a consultant that works for DDC, so I just, but the broad answer is, yeah, liquidated damages are always part of the contract, and incentives are included in both the PA1 and PA2 contracts.
And Tony, to your point, let's make sure we reflect it on our notes, because we're going to ask DDC, I assume there's some standard way they do this on projects about those incentives and also penalties. So thank you, Tony, for that question. It's on point.
Christine Dasmaro. Christine, I think you're on the phone. You have to hit *6.
Yeah, I unmuted myself, and all I really wanted to say, or my comment is that the Ecology Center has not renewed a license agreement with the Parks Department, because the license agreement that was offered really gives us pause that Parks is really excluding a future of the compost yard from East River Park. I've also looked at some of the bid documents for construction of this park, and I do not see a compost yard design in these bidded out contracts. So we're hoping to discuss this further in the September meeting, but I just wanted to make that brief comment right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine.
Tommy Lowe.
Thank you. First, I want to, just for the information of everybody on this call, somebody raised the issue of alienation before, and just for everybody's information, next Thursday, August 20th, there'll be a hearing at State Supreme Court in a lawsuit entered by more than almost 100 members of the community and local organizations regarding the city's failure to seek alienation, which was supported by every one of our state legislators. So that should be considered at some point during the timing. The other issue is the community advisory group established by the city council meets separately from this group and meets in behind closed doors, which no other community board members except Trever or the public are barred from those meetings. And I want to know what the justification the city agencies have for barring the public from receiving the information that the CAG receives directly. And third, I'm a resident of East River Housing. Carolyn got it wrong. We were part of the ULURP process. And as far as we know, our board of directors have denied you access to our property. So I'm wondering what DDC or EDC or whoever's responsible for the combined sewer, are you doing a workaround? Are you re-engineering? Or how are you handling that part of the project, since our co-op has not approved or is going to deny you access to our property?
Well, first, let me add something, and just tell me to be very careful when you start to talk about committee board members. We really don't want this to be back and forth, but I am not the only committee board member on that CAG. In fact, there are people who are on this call right now who are part of that CAG, who are part of the community board from CB3 and CB6. So I just want to make sure that's clear. And the CAG is also established by the Manhattan Borough President, and along with the City Council member as direct result of mitigations.
Trevor, we can't hear you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Did you hear the first part or no?
No, you're sort of dissipating out.
All right. Just I was just telling Tommy that to be very careful about getting into back and forth with people. Just to indicate that I'm not the only community board member on the CAG. In fact, there are people who are on this call who are also on the CAG, including Michael and other CB3 members and also other CB6 members. So,
but no other member of Community Board 3 can attend those meetings, other than CAG members.
It's not a community board. CAG, we did not initiate it, and you can talk to your borough president or city council member about that particular, but there are other community board members on that CAG, just to keep that clear. That's the only thing, and I'm gonna let the city officials answer the other questions if they want to.
Thank you, Trevor. This is Ophelia again. So in terms of alienation, us as DDC and the consultants, we abstain because that's between city law and the mayor's law. So we're not familiar with the lawsuit and we can't comment on the lawsuit. That's between the lawyers and city law, and they are determining. But as you know, we move forward until we hear anything further. We're going to keep moving forward with the project. It's always up to the judge's ruling, right? But until then, we're going to keep moving forward with the project. And as Trevor said, in terms of the CAG, so it was not the city or DDC to decide whether the CAG meetings are closed doors. The CAG was formed and it was asked by city elected officials. DDC just granted this because this is what they wanted during the negotiations. DDC remains neutral in terms of the CAG. We are like paying the bills, so to speak. We're paying the CAG, which is Pratt Center, to facilitate the meetings. However, we don't decide who's on the CAG. Like Trevor said, that was decided by the elected officials, and there are community board 6 and 3 members on it. There's also NYCHA, there's also nonprofits. So the elected officials decided a well-rounded group to represent the community. So that's not on DDC side. And in terms of making it public or private, that is up to the CAG and the elected officials to decide whether they want to open it up into a public forum or a public viewing. DDC abstains whether or not yes or no, making it public. So DDC, again, wants to remain neutral when it comes to the CAG. We will provide updates in the CAG. We will provide information about the project and we'll support them and also pay the bills because they fall under us to, manage. But in terms of dictating what the CAG does or who's on the CAG or who can see it, that's not us.
And Michael, can you drop a link, if you can find it, to the minutes from the CAG meeting? I believe the first minutes are up. If you can't find it, it's no big deal.
I'll try, but I don't have it readily available, but I can see if I can find it.
It's on the ESCR website, and if someone from the ESCR team can provide it to us even quicker, that would be helpful, because I know the minutes are on there, and you can see.
Actually, everything's on the website. So
everything's
the
on the
PDC
website.
deck, the slides of the construction phasing, and the CAG.
The minutes for the CAG meeting. Okay, thank you.
And I wanted to ask Tommy, were you talking about East River Housing?
Yeah.
When you asked about,
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the city does plan on setting up a meeting with East River Housing Co-op Board again to talk about options. So that should be forthcoming.
Okay, thank you. And I know that's a private discussion between you and the East River Co-op.
Yes.
So once you have a resolution, you can come to us, or if you don't have a resolution, you can come to us also. Michael, who's next?
Well, a board member just raised their hand, so we'll go to her first, Kay Webster.
Just briefly off of that, just given the history here, I'm wondering if we can't ask either to have the community board members on the CAG who are willing to say they are. I don't know any other way to offer the community access, and maybe it should be taken up with the borough president, but partly to move things along a little faster, but people are not feeling some people are not feeling a lot of trust, and we're all about the transparency thing. So it's a suggestion, do with it what you will, but.
Okay, to your point, we spent 2 hours talking about making this a public meeting at our last meeting. So it's not just you, it's the actual members. And it was 2 hours of talking about that.
Well, even that is
we didn't talk about much else except for that. So
well, even that is really good for people to know that you're not trying to be not transparent. So thank you.
It's not.
I would expect that.
Okay, this is Faye again. On the website, besides the minutes to the CAG meeting, there's also the roster of all the members of the CAG. So that's public. So if anyone wants to know who's part of the CAG, it's on the website.
Thank you. I think the issue that Trever is reinforced is that we're, as a community board, we tend to like the transparency thing. We may not like all the answers, but we like the transparency thing. So thank you. Thank you.
We do too. Thank you.
Next is, I'm sorry if I'm going to say this wrong, Mary Kalamkirian.
Hi. Hi, thanks. Yeah, that's good enough. Thanks for the presentation. I'm a Lower East Side resident, and I access daily what would be phase 1 of the project. And I just want to reiterate the question already asked by, or the demand already made of the community board member for the updated plans. It's impossible to, or it's not easy to find them online. And given that we have no other outdoor space anywhere, that there are no recreational facilities, everything's closed right now because in spite of you saying there is no effect of COVID on this plan, there's a huge quality of life effect on COVID on this plan. If this is starting in a month, it would be really helpful. I mean, that's hyperbole, but we need the maps of what's going to happen, what access we're going to lose, and make alternative plans within the best of our abilities. The other thing I would like to say is on your issues of community liaison and outreach and public information, I'd like to know whether the website that you promoted is also going to offer resources on alternatives and other options available to the community in the absence of green space, again, in a pandemic situation. And also if these CCLs to whom you referred are actually from our community and then can provide information specific to the residents who are going to be struggling without access to the park or any park. Thank you.
Mary, I'm going to answer this, or answer part of this before we ESCR team completes it. Up next is the mitigations that we talked about for various months about the open space loss. So if you stay tuned, as soon as we get the last question, then we're going to have a whole nother agenda item about what they plan to do to make up for lost space. I'll leave the rest for the ESCR team.
Sure, I can answer the question about the website and the CCLs. So the website that is currently up that many of you may have just gone to when the link was posted in the chat, we are working on revamping that website to be more construction friendly. So it will have information about upcoming impacts, for example, announcing closures, announcing interim options for, where people can identify park space and recreation space during those closures. So we are working to put out as much information as we can about impacts to the public and alternate options. And as I mentioned, we are looking at a community information center, which will also have a lot of that same information available to the public. As far as the CCLs, so the CCLs will be able to provide very local information. They will be on site every day working with you in your community. They know the project area well. They have a lot of experience on the Lower East Side. And, they will be there every day. They are often outside. They spend a good part of their day outside talking to community members, meeting with people to, take a look at a certain area to identify an issue. So they are very, very familiar with the community and they will be able to address any concerns.
Sorry, Trevor, I stepped away for a minute. Trevor, I think you're muted.
We have one last question from Diane. Before Diane speaks, I'd like for the ESCR team to prep for the next agenda item. Who's going to present that? And Diane, I'm going to get to you in a second. I just want to make sure we're about ready. If you can pull up that screen, I'll have the internal at the 2-minute clock in my head, Michael.
Okay.
Take it down and start sharing the screen for the next item. So Diane, you want to go ahead?
Actually, someone else asked my question already, and I couldn't unraise my hand. So
beautiful, Diane. That's even better. So we're just going to wait for the next.
Alda's presenting.
Perfect.
All right.
So Alda, if you want to begin.
Yes. Thanks, everyone. My name is Alda Chan. I am with New York City Parks, and I am here today to provide a supplement to DDC's presentation about what's happening as part of the ESCR project. We were asked to come back to provide information on what's happening in terms of the neighborhood recreation improvements. These are slides that are very similar to what we've shown last fall and earlier this year, actually just before COVID hit. And so we're happy to come back today to give folks a refresher, provide an update on things that have changed so far in terms of progress we've made. But wanted to remind folks that what we're solving for here is the fact that construction will disrupt access, we recognize, to parts of East River Park as well as some of the parks north of 14th Street, and that people need a place to play and relax during construction. We know that's the case. We've been tasked with finding ways to provide recreational opportunities for folks during construction. And so we've really been trying to think creatively about how we can get that in place quickly. For folks who know what our typical capital process looks like, it usually takes anywhere from 2 to 3 years for us to design and build a project. So again, really trying to think creatively about things we can do. So our agenda, gonna go through an overview of the strategy, something that we've shared previously with this board. I wanna remind folks, touch a little bit on the issue of permits specifically, talk about some of the completed improvements we've made, and discuss upcoming improvements. And I do want to remind folks that one of the primary ways that we are aiming to address recreational need is by ensuring that the project will be phased. The DDC presentation spoke to this a little bit more broadly, but specifically for East River Park, I pulled one of the images from one of DDC's earlier presentations. So I think Faye had shared a link with the board, and that's being disseminated, but this is a draft, not final. I know the DDC will be coming back with more specific information, but the city has committed to ensuring that portions of the park will be accessible at all times during construction. So this is sort of something to keep in mind as we think about access to open space. In addition, I wanted to share this overview map of additional physical improvements that we've committed to. There's a lot of information on this map. This map is going to be posted online. It's actually the same map that we've shared previously earlier this year. There was a version that we shared at our open houses for folks who were there last summer. So this is still consistent. Wanted to remind folks that this is the big picture approach that we're taking. This includes everything from installing new turf sites, sports coating existing parks and playgrounds, making spruce ups, painting, installing movable solar field lighting, and the like. Again, not going to go through this in detail, but it will be accessible online. It actually is online already, but it is sort of buried in one of our existing presentations. And we can talk a little bit more about this if there are questions later. Moving specifically to permitting, because this was a really big topic of discussion last fall, we wanted to address this because, as some of you know, East River Park is home to a lot of athletic facilities. Switching back to the draft phasing plan that I had shown earlier, we anticipate that a portion of the park will be closed during the first phase of construction. The orange is what DDC anticipates will be offline during the first 2 or 2.5 years or so. And with East River Park, coming offline in sometime in late fall, so probably sometime in November. From a sports and field use perspective, we do anticipate that there will be little, if any, impact on our fall permitting season. This does mean that we are doing a lot of planning for spring, because that's when we anticipate that a lot of the closures of the park will start impacting available fields. But big picture, just given where we are with COVID right now, I do want to flag that right now we do not have permitted team sports. We have been accepting applications for the fall and are waiting for a green light for team sports to be permitted from a health and safety perspective. So in East River Park, we know that softball and baseball are really popular uses. That's one of the main things that we hear a lot about. The city, I'm going to remind folks, has committed to accommodating all local youth leagues within local sites once the East River Park fields begin to close. And again, we're thinking that will probably hit sometime spring 2021. So we're aiming to address those shortages and to make sure that local youth leagues can stay local, because we know kids have a harder time moving around. Adult leagues have access to transportation. So we're doing that first by making sure that we prioritize that the fields that are open locally go to these youth leagues. So if you look at this diagram here, the areas that are in orange again are anticipated to be closed first, but we do have fields 3 and 4 open. And just north of here, Murphy Brothers Playground, which is in CB6, but has 2 T-ball fields, so we'll also be taking that into consideration. In addition, we are also installing new turf sites for permitting use. So we completed Tannehy earlier this year. This is a photo of the turf site that was installed. There are 3 additional turf fields that are going to be installed this fall. That's Robert Moses, St. Martin's, and Petersfield. These 3 fields are in CB6, so they are north of here. We recognize that it's not exactly in CB3. We are continuing to have conversations with the permit holders about who has more flexibility in terms of transportation, which fields might be more appropriate. We are thinking about our fields from the whole borough perspective and trying to rejigger usages throughout the borough to accommodate the need to keep certain users local. So that's how we're planning on solving for that. In addition, we are adding additional capacity at some of our existing sites by installing movable solar field lights. We deployed some of these at Baruch in the fall of 2019 to see how they would work. We've purchased the lights. They're awaiting deployment. Again, right now, we don't have permitted field play, so we have not installed those yet, but once we get the green light and have been told it's safe, we will be installing solar field lights at these 6 sites. In addition, last fall, the city committed to make certain DOE fields available, and we're continuing to work with City Hall and DOE to make this a possibility for 2021. I don't have too much of an update for you right now because our DOE colleagues are very focused on working on the fall school reopenings, but this is something that we are continuing to work towards and wanted to remind folks that this is part of the suite of commitments that the city is working towards to mitigate some of the recreational impacts. Another thing that's still sort of in the mix in terms of a potential solution, if we can find the right group, is that we've had really good conversations with Governor's Island. A lot of these pre-COVID, we'll have to think about, what the health and safety impacts look like and how the pandemic looks next spring. But they have offered access to the fields on Governor's Island. And we had started to explore, which teams may be most appropriate in terms, most comfortable with the transportation on the ferry and such. We think that it can be part of the solution. And so that's something to keep in mind in terms of how we're solving for field play and permitting. And I'm going to include this slide that we shared previously because we always get questions about, well, how do I know which fields are permitted and who has access to it? Wanted to remind folks that all of our information is posted online. There's a URL here where you can get access to all of that. But again, There is no permanent field play right now. People can drop in and use the fields, but we haven't been releasing permits because of COVID. Moving on to some other types of mitigations and improvements we've been making. In addition to fields, we've also been thinking about ways that existing parks may see higher use and could be spruced up to be more welcoming and to take on additional use. So here's a list of completed improvements that we made last fall and some early this spring. I'm not going to go through each of these bullets, but a lot of these are sort of quick improvements that we tried to make, again, avoiding a large capital project, which could take years because we wanted these to be in place in time for use during ESCR construction. So I have a couple of examples, and for folks who have seen this before, please bear with me that this is, I guess, a refresher for folks who are less aware of it. I talked about Tan He's turf previously, but we actually did quite extensive work throughout the park. We worked with DOT to repair the sidewalks, we repaved the basketball courts. We actually did sports coating on them as well. I don't think the photo captures this, but we did a pretty extensive facelift on the site overall. I think it looks really great. And again, I think it's pretty exciting that we're able to do that without going through a really extensive capital project. At Coleman, we did what we called sports coating, but it's actually some painting. It's like a more durable surfacing to spruce up our spray shower. We painted a comfort station, we found this sort of underutilized space, removed some of the fencing, put in picnic tables and created a picnic area. So these are some of the things that we've been trying to do with our existing resources to just spruce up existing sites. Al Smith Recreation Center, again, refreshed the basketball courts and the handball courts, repainted the exterior. At Baruch, we finished returfing the field, refreshed a handball court, and we've done a lot of sports coating and painting at sites throughout the district. Here are some more examples. And that sort of gives you a taste of some of the work that we've already completed and what we're anticipating completing. A lot of this work will be going on this fall and will be completed by next spring. And so in addition to painting and sports coating, we're also putting in new field lights, installing new barbecue in some areas. So a lot of things to look forward to and hoping to get as much done as possible this fall, but definitely aiming to have this in place by spring of 2021. One of the things that we're really excited about is the improvements that are coming online at Little Flower Playground and at LaGuardia Bathhouse. The bathhouse structure was removed as of late last year, early this year. And in addition, we had done a lot of repainting of the playground structures. Turf installation we had started and had hoped to get done this spring, but COVID hit. But we're really excited that we've been able to get the work started again this summer. We're putting in the final touches, so that should be done pretty soon, and we'll definitely let you know when that is ready and open to the public. We're also actually going to be installing some new barbecue grills there as well. And I think we're really excited about this because the footprint of the bathhouse was previously inaccessible, and so this will be new public open space that folks will have access to. This is not going to be a turf field that's permitted, so this is for anyone who wants to sit around, you know, throw a frisbee, exercise, whatever. We're not going to be permitting games on this. So keep an eye out for that. In addition to what we're doing at some park sites, we are also doing some targeted improvements at NYCHA campuses. Going to be similar type of quick painting, sports coating, spruce ups. These are going to be done by spring of 2021. At Reese, we're painting the amphitheater. At Wald, we're sports coating basketball courts. At Campus 2, we're doing improvements to some planters. At Seward Extension, both at Essex and Broome, we're going to be painting some of the courtyard areas. And at Al Smith, we're going to be sports coating, I think it's baseball and basketball. So keep an eye out for that as well. We know that a lot of the folks who will be impacted by this project are NYCHA residents, so we wanted to make sure that we did some work in open spaces that residents use outside of parks as well. We gave an update on neighborhood tree plantings last month, but for folks who missed that, parks has committed to planting 1,000 trees in the neighborhood prior to Esker construction starting or even being completed. We did about 320, I think it was 319 last fall. We had been planning on doing some this spring. Again, COVID hit, so we missed that planting season, but we will be on track to do about 150 plantings this fall and more to come in 2021. We are also going to be reconvening a meeting of the Neighborhood Tree Planting Task Force. Haley Hicks, who's the project manager for that and who joined us last month, will be reaching out to folks looking to schedule a meeting sometime this September. Quick update on Green Thumb Gardens. One of the things we're also doing is making resources available to community gardens in good standing, providing materials, equipment, anticipating that they may see higher usage when parts of East River Park are closed. We are still proceeding with this and working on the delivery for the materials. For folks who are less aware about what this was, we shared actually like a menu of resources that gardens could pick from. And so we were in the process of procuring and getting those delivered to our warehouses when COVID hit. And so we got most of them. I think there are a couple things like, I think like sidewalk message boards and certain size benches that were impacted by procurement that we won't be able to offer, but most of them will be delivered to gardens pretty soon. We're just working on the delivery schedule. And then this is something that Will from EDC had addressed earlier, but that we wanted to make sure we talked about in the context of ESCR mitigations and access to open space is Pier 42, where this will be new open space at what has been an industrial waterfront site for a long time. We know that this is a long-awaited amenity for the community members. There was a master plan that was done and completed in 2014 with a really grand vision of how to transform this space. As Will mentioned, there was first the Upland project. This is a snapshot that I pulled from one of EDC's consultants' previous presentations showing that the primarily passive open space that will be installed in what is currently an asphalt parking lot. It will include a playground, there will be lawns and picnic areas, strolling paths, as well as a comfort station or restrooms. And part of this work was to demolish the shed, but it did not include access onto the deck itself. So as part of the conversations around Esker, and I would definitely give credit to the community board members and to the council members for really pushing us to think creatively. We started to have conversations thinking about whether or not we could have access, bring access to the deck itself. And so late last year, earlier this year, right before COVID hit, we came to the community board with an update on a plan to activate the Pier 42 deck. This is the same plan that we showed then. And so this is really meant to provide access and activate what was previously not going to be publicly accessible by the end of the Pier 42 project. The programming that you see here reflects what we heard throughout the Esker design process as usages that people were really concerned about losing and that they wanted to make sure that we provided access to. So there is a soccer field, there are 4 tennis courts, 4 half basketball courts, adult fitness, as well as picnic tables. We'll talk a little bit about that. The timelines for this, we're really excited about this being able to move forward and that we were able to galvanize enough interest and support as part of the Esker conversations around this. In addition to everything that we're doing as part of Esker, I did want to flag some of the Parks Capital projects in the district that will be completed soon. There's a list of what's coming 2020 and as well as 2021. And then the last thing I have is a sort of placeholder URL for, we've shared this previously. We are working to finalize and launch a website in coordination with DDC. So Parks' website is going to be where you'll go when you're looking for any type of recreational experience or park. If you're looking for, say, a spray shower, or looking for a playground, looking for a ball field, we're going to have a site with a map and a drop-down menu where you can choose, what type of activity you're looking for, and it will highlight which nearby parks and open spaces you can go to enjoy whatever it is that you're looking for. So that website, we have the URL here. We'll let you know when that map is live, but we'll also link the DDC website, and the DDC website will also be linked to that. So coming soon, I want to make sure you guys know that that is something that we are planning. And that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you for that presentation. I know we have seen that in some format before, but considering the COVID delay, it was nice to get a refresher. We're going to do the same as we've done before and go to committee members. And Michael, I'm having a little difficulty seeing anyone other than Carolyn. I'm just trying to get a...
And right now, Carolyn and David Adams are the only two committee members.
Let's start with David this time, since he hasn't spoken.
Yeah, I was, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, we can, David.
Okay. I was wondering if there's any difference whether they have remote schooling or not. Will that affect the availability of parks? You have to take that into consideration.
I know that there have been a lot of public discussions about it. I don't know. I can certainly follow up on that, but I don't have anything to report right now.
Thank you.
Thank
if
you.
you could have, if you have something, I believe we meet, our September meeting may be on the same day school starts or around that date. So if you could have that information by the next meeting, it'd be helpful.
Yeah, we'll follow up.
Carolyn, you're unmuted.
Yes, a quick question. Do you have a map for phase 2? You only showed phase 1.
Yeah, I think that one of the links that Faye shared from DDC's full presentation should have sort of the full progression. I think DDC's materials actually show you anticipated year by year. It may be slightly, I'm not sure if it's fully accurate now, but all of that information is part of DDC's slides that they shared previously.
Okay, so far it's not in the chat.
It's not, so the link that they put in the chat leads to this page, which is every presentation that they've made to a public meeting. However, Carolyn, to your point, I perused this list while Alda was presenting, and I don't see the meeting that you're referring to. I don't know what date it was or what organization it was to, but this list seems to be in date order. And as far as 2020 is concerned, there.
Mike?
Yeah.
Oh. It's the CD3 Parks Committee meeting of January 16th. That presentation has the slides that Carolyn is looking for.
Okay. So Carolyn, that's what you need to look for then. I'm not going to open it up for the whole meeting because I don't want to.
Okay, fine. That's what I wanted to know.
Right.
And then the PC deck is above that, the one that shows January 21st. Where it says PDC final design vote, that deck would have all the visuals as well, with the flood walls, etc.
Okay, so is the link to the site being shared?
The link to this page was already shared in the chat. I will share it again. I cannot share the link directly to those slides, but I'll share the link to this page again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Michael, do you see any more committee members?
No, sir, just Diane.
Okay, I'm going to have one question from Diane, and then I'll ask a few. Diane?
Hi. Alda, you talked about ball fields and other sorts of recreation areas, but there's no update on the Greenway. So closing sections of East River Park is obviously going to interrupt continuous access to the Greenway. And I know that in the agreement that the city signed with our local elected officials, there was a promise to do some study on bikeway, and we have also heard a lot of interest from runners asking where their runners, walkers, etc. are going to go when the greenway is partially closed. And I believe it's going to be completely closed one summer. I think that's something that DDC mentioned in the fall. So do you have any updates on what we can expect as an alternative to the greenway for pedestrians, runners, and bikers?
I don't have an update for you today. I think we'll make sure that DOT or someone from DOT is available to talk more broadly about the thinking around this. And they were, I believe, working on a study to look at one of the avenues. And I think they will probably be prepared to share some information on where that study is. So I will try to make sure that someone's here next month to provide more information on that. But that's right, we haven't addressed the greenway in a while. So thanks for bringing that up.
Great, thank you. Because I'm actually on the greenway right now, and there are a lot of people out here. So I think this is going to be a big public interest.
Thank you, Diane, and I agree. We kind of let that one sort of fall off the radar, but I'm going to ask for it to be discussed at the September meeting.
Trevor, can I ask a somewhat selfish question? So, Alda, in previous presentations, there was mitigations planned for Corlears, and I didn't see that on this round, and I'm wondering why that is. I know that the previous mitigations were painting of our playground, and we just painted our playground 2 years ago, so it really doesn't need repainting. But we've also been rejected twice now for capital funding because the elected official we went to was told by Steve Simon at Parks that, oh, that will be taken care of by ESCR.
Myself. There are a couple slides that I took out from previous presentations for like additional painting work we've done, just because I thought it might be a little too repetitive, but if I can follow up with you on what additional mitigations that those may have been. I'm sorry, it's been a long couple months. And I do recall some of our more recent conversations, like maybe our last meeting where there was interest in things like picnic tables. So those are still things that are on our list. You know, those are things that we wanted to get done through our in-house resources and staff. We're slowly getting around to doing a lot of that work this fall and this summer. But with COVID, a lot of our internal resources have been stretched quite thin. Hasn't helped that we had a storm to deal with recently. But yes, let's follow up on the additional things. There are some things I remember, but I want to make sure that I have a full list of what we may have discussed previously.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to add a few comments before we move on to the next agenda item. This has been a topic, nothing new, but I just want to make sure we're prioritizing local use for the permits, and if that's still your priority. Alda.
Yes, we are prioritizing local use, but particularly local use. I think we're going to start with local use as the top tier and then sort of move from there. If we can accommodate all the local use in the local sites, then, and we have additional capacity, then we'll start thinking about user groups aside from adults. So we are now looking at probably impacts in the spring. And so we're still trying to figure out whether we're going to have a fall permitting season, but our permitting folks had started talking to permit users as of last fall. You know, we kind of have a good idea of which groups like which types of fields or what hours and where they can go, and you know who's open to travel and who isn't. So we still have all those in mind. I know that in the past we've been asked to provide like a schedule of what the permitting looks like. It is a little premature for us right now, but these are things that we have in mind, and that continues to be how we aim to prioritize for the spring.
Thank you. And just two more questions. Pier 42, the upland portion, not the deck, is also federally funded, and Will was on earlier from EDC to say that this project will move forward. The community spent many years of advocating, maybe even decades advocating for this because it's a brand new park. I just want to have you reaffirm that this is fully funded for Pier 42 in the upland portion.
Yes, it is fully funded.
And one of the things that there are a lot of things in the slides, but a lot of it did not talk about just open space for people to use. It was a lot about sports and permitting fields. And our next topic will actually talk about Pier 35, which has been really, really overrun by people. It's become the #2 spot in the city for photographs. I don't know how that happened, but we just don't have as many, and I know you can understand this, the maintenance staff has been really hit hard. But if in the next presentation you can talk about what we're going to do or what Parks is planning just in terms of open space mitigations that are not sports related, just places for people to go and relax or to sit around. I know some of the turf field conversions will allow that, but they don't have seating. So if you could just talk about that at the next meeting. And we made comments to the Pier 42 intern deck on, I believe you visited at least one residential building and you've come to CB3. And we just like to hear the status of those comments. One of the things I remember talking about was possibly some barbecue areas in a legal place. We seem to have a big problem on the waterfront with that. And lots of fires underneath the FDR, which is really problematic, but I think this may be an opportunity to put some that are far enough away from housing, and it's what people have asked for. So if we could just talk about the comments that people have made before COVID hit us.
Yeah, certainly. So we can come back and focus a little bit more on passive spaces recreationally more broadly. I think for Pier 42, I didn't focus on this, but the upland portion is going to be more of a passive, meant to be a more passive, quiet space. There will be a playground, but the rest of it is meant to be more strolling lawns and quieter lawn areas. For the Pier 42 deck, we unfortunately are not going to be including barbecue underneath that shed structure. We are including picnic tables, but we are not including barbecue in this particular area. We are trying to incorporate barbecue in some of the other improvements at existing parks that we're doing, which will be actually coming online sooner. So in addition to Little Flower Playground, we're also going to be putting some in Dry Dock as well, but not Pier 42. I'm trying to remember, there was some discussion about adult fitness. So I think the adult fitness at this site is meant to be more for adults. I'm trying to remember what additional comments there may have been. If there are ones that come to mind specifically, Trevor, let me know. If not, I'm happy to follow up in the September meeting on where things stand.
Sure, and I just want to make sure we focus on, because I remember there's a slide that's not in this deck, so I actually had Pier 35 as a place for people to go for open space. People apparently took that slide to heart, and hundreds of people using that park even right now, which it was not designed to handle that type of capacity. So just want to keep that in mind.
Trevor, sorry, we have a hand up from somebody on the phone that wants to ask a question.
Sure, and that's going to be the last question. You want to identify yourself, Michael, if you want to have this person.
059, the last 3 digits. Go ahead, please identify yourself.
Yeah, hi. Good evening. This is Patricia from Councilmember Marc Richardson's office. I just have a couple of quick questions. LaGuardia Bathhouse, you mentioned that you were installing the turf. Is there an installation date for finishing that installation? And Stewart Park Extension, you mentioned courtyard painting. Will that be at both buildings? And again, is there a target date for that?
So for LaGuardia's turf, we are really close. I think we're just finishing up the details. I don't have a date for you right now because I think we also want to get the barbecues in before we open that space. But we'll definitely be in touch with your office when we actually have a date, and we'll let the community board know as well. But it is wrapping up. I think for most folks who are walking by, you can see that a lot of that turf is done now. I think we had some detailing and some additional scenes that were still not finished as of last week. But we'll keep you posted on that. In terms of Seward, there will be painting at the courtyards at both, I'm trying to remember the sites now, at both Essex and Broome. Yes, it will be, I think it's going to be the sports coating type quality painting, so it's a little thicker and more durable. And yes, both of those sites. And the timeline is targeted for having that work done next spring.
Okay, thank you. And thank you once again for providing that update. We hope to see, well, we will see you next month to provide more updates on not only the ESCR project itself, but also intern recreation. So thank you very much. For those who are following this meeting, we're about to move to our next agenda item, which is a discussion about Pier 35. Michael, I know I have one speaker, which I did not, wasn't able to let speak, so I'm gonna let him speak. I know he wants to speak about Pier 35. Ishmael, if you want to raise your hand so Michael can identify you. Okay. Go ahead, Ishmael. You're on a 2-minute timer, by the way.
How's it going, Trevor? Hello, everyone. My name's Ishmael Alvarado. I'm a resident here at 82 Rutgers in Two Bridges. I actually my window faces the park, so I get to see it every day, daily, and daytime and night. And I participate in the workouts there, and I bring my kids and my wife. We go out there and we socialize there as well. It has become a nightmare every night, watching like the park basically bombarded with lots of people barbecuing, drinking, partying till like 3, 4 in the morning, and mostly on the weekends. But every night there's a lot of people there. So the only time I really see security or parks people is basically during the normal working hours. But they should go there to try to keep the place clean, because lately we've been having graffiti, and when I go there with my kids, there's lots of like drug paraphernalia or empty bottles, or not lately, but there was a lot of fireworks there. Actually, some of the fireworks hit my window and put little cracks in my window. But they just should do something on keeping the park a little more cleaner, a little more secured. Definitely adding more garbage cans with the amount of people coming there. I don't think we have enough receptacles to maintain the garbage that's coming there, especially in the evening time when it seems like a lot of people seem to gather there, whether it's underneath the FDR or on Pier 35 itself. So I just wanted to give you my input on that. It's a beautiful park. I enjoy it. I enjoy the things that the Friends of Pier 35 do there. We enjoy the space. It's just that it's been getting like a little bit like the Wild West there, especially like in the evening time when it gets dark, and on the weekends it gets really packed with lots of people there. I mean, there's dozens of barbecues going on at the same time, and I know they're not supposed to barbecue, but I don't see anyone really enforcing it. So I just wanted to share that as a resident of the Two Bridges neighborhood and downtown area, and that's my time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ishmael. So the next agenda item, we don't have a set resolution for this, but we have talked about it in detail. And I'm going to apologize because I'm part of that group. And to a certain extent, I've sort of neglected that area. I know we've met with public officials about improvements for this area, but the main thing is it's really been security and making it a safe place for families, which no longer is, especially at night. It is a park, although it's a sort of hybrid area, as EDC actually controls the land. Parks is a maintenance partner and also provides securities, but it's sort of left out of the loop of being maintained properly, although I think things are going to change. Just for reference, there were 37 911 calls over the last few months, 3 bodies found in the East River along Pier 35 and Pier 36. They did not make the news because it wasn't on the Hudson River side. And 276 311 calls having to do with noise, fireworks, or other complaints within 3 months in that particular area. So it's been extremely challenging. There's also a boat pier that's behind there. The place is been destroyed, and Parks is well aware of the damage that it has caused over the last few months, where it's completely changed. There, in addition to 82 Rutgers, there's also Lansing 1 and Lansing 2, which face that area. The residents have made dozens, if not hundreds, of calls to 311 about this particular space. The place every morning is full of garbage, and I understand Parks can only do so much to clean up, but it's really become a problem. Ironically, it's next to the Department of Sanitation, but there's only 2 garbage cans on the entire pier. They handle the garbage. And when you have an overflow of garbage, you get rats. So we have a big rat problem to the extent that the brand new sprinkler system that was installed last year, which we enjoyed because we didn't have to water the plants ourselves, was eaten by rats within a few months. And now they're going to repair it, and there's multiple rat burrows because every morning people throw raw garbage on the ground. I've lost quite a few volunteers who were willing to clean the park, but when it's a daily thing every single day, people basically give up. So we're looking to do, we've talked about this before. I mean, initially with skateboarders, just people destroying it, but we're looking for some sort of a resolution to keep this place safe for families and available for the seniors who also like to use it, because they've also been kicked out of many areas. And if you think about the limited space for seniors, this is less than a half an acre. This is a quiet place, or was a quiet place, and they are routinely kicked out every single evening by folks who take over space. There is a closure time for this park. However, it's difficult to enforce because there are no gates. It's an open space. Last year, when we had the party boats leaving out of there, the police department closed the back of it to prevent people from exiting the boat to going towards Pier 35 and causing damage that way. Things have sort of changed with the police department, so it's been a bit challenging to close, but what we're looking to do is to actually close the park based on this time that's stated. Right now, there's a sign that says the park closes at midnight. Extremely difficult to enforce, but we want to make sure that we can have a closure time at midnight, at least so we don't have giant 400 plus people in the park with DJs at 4 o'clock in the morning, basically affecting all the residents that are all either low or moderate income along this park area. The other issue, especially when the party boats leave, is there are no bathrooms at all in the area. So when you have parties at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, people are drinking, they put a strain on not only the park, they think they're fertilizing the plants, but they're not. Anyone who does park work understands that they're not fertilizing the park. If you've ever volunteered to clean up a park, you know what you're gonna find, especially when hundreds of people every single weekend come there to party. It's not only become a site for people to take pictures, but for some reason it's become a place for people to have parties. Any given night, there are cars lined up, triple, double parked along South Street. I'm not going to say what happens, but you can just use your imagination. And if there are a lot of people in the party area and cars are lining up, there's activity going on. There's a stress in the police department. We understand that. So we're just trying to find solutions for that. With there being no bathrooms, the buildings also have a strain because people really need to go to the bathroom. So they knock on residential buildings. Dozens of people knock on buildings saying, "Can we use your bathroom?" And when the security guard says no, they will use any planting area that they can find. So the solution that we've come up in various meetings is just try to enforce a closure time to the best that we can. This will at least eliminate the parties that go on there, especially on the weekends, till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So in terms of writing a resolution, which we were not able to do beforehand, the only thing that Parks, EDC, and the police department, other than putting up multiple signs, is to have a closure time that's actually stated on the on one of the beams underneath the park, and to add appropriate signage identifying the park because it's not identified when you call 311. It's not listed as a park yet. Anyone who knows about getting stuff on 311 knows it takes a lot of time. We're still working on it, but it's still an issue. But we think this will alleviate a lot of the open drug use, and a lot of the open alcohol use, and to be honest, a lot of the open drug sales that happen in this park at night. So what I'm asking for is basically the bullet point of we'd like to have parks enforce the closure time of midnight. We've talked about other things like adding big bellies, which sanitation promised us. They have not been delivered, so there's only 2 garbage cans in the entire area. And to figure out a way to get some portable bathrooms in the area so that people don't relieve themselves all over the new planting beds. So I'm going to ask the committee members if they have anything additional, because those are the only bullet points I have. It's very simple. But I don't want to continue on unless I want to hear from some committee members. It's okay.
Yes, I'm very familiar with open parks and all of that. I'm just wondering if it seems to me that it needs PEP to make a commitment to patrolling, because if you have portable bathrooms, it can present its own difficulties. So I think it's a tough thing, but I would just ask for PEP patrols. I think what you get.
What we learned is there's 2 officers below 59th, which I'm sure you're aware of, and they typically stop at 6. They've agreed on some evenings to patrol till 10. But the bulk of the complaints and what we endure is later than that. It happens in the overnight hours. Many of us who live in the building wake up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and there's a bunch of people down there. So, and then that's beyond PEP. And there's been a discussion of whether it should be the police or PEP or whose jurisdiction. I agree with you on bathrooms, and Kay, I'd like to talk to you offline about what we can do about bathrooms, because I don't know the solution for that. I hear what you're saying, and I can take that out of it. I was just trying to think of a solution.
No, I don't. I hear you, but maybe Michael, you might have.
Yeah, I can't raise my hand, so I'll just interject. We got parks to put a porta potty into Corlears, a couple of years ago, because our comfort station is under construction, and prior to that has been closed for decades. And it was great for a little while, but if it's not maintained and not emptied regularly, that's an issue. But then we started having an issue with vandalism, and kids get bored, and the easiest thing for them to do is tip over a porta potty and start jumping all over it. Then we had 2 porta potties in a row burnt to the ground by an arsonist. I should say melted to the ground. So then parks decided they weren't putting a porta potty back in the park, at least until a further date when they can be sure that it might be safe or secure. Fire marshal, we think, caught the arsonist, but we're not 100% sure. But right now, the only place to go to the bathroom in our park is a porta potty that is behind a locked fence that's meant for the construction workers who are doing the 2 capital projects.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks for nothing. I'm just wondering if even in the resolution we can say meet with tenants, etc., and come up with a solution. Even those barriers with a sign that says, if you cross this, you are trespassing, blah, 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 blah. I think the residents it's a public park, but the residents have a right to sleep and not be used as a latrine and not be harassed to use their bathrooms. But,
Carolyn's got it.
Carolyn?
You're muted, Carolyn.
I unmuted myself. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
We've gone through things like that with Conference Square Park, and also with community gardens. And what I've been told by the police in regards to La Plaza Cultural is that we had to have signage posted Okay, and if, I don't know the determination as to whether or not your area is, you're saying it's not listed as a park?
There's a park, but it's not listed on when you call 311. You have to put in an approximate address, which sort of skews the data for
Right.
311. When I pulled it, I actually just went to the open data website. If anyone has any skill with that site, let me know. And just physically pulled the calls that were nearby, and that's how I got to 276. But we are working on getting signs. Yes, we are working on getting signs. That's
Because
one of
what
the,
I was told is that in order to get police to respond, I mean, we've had everything from people knock down fences, and I relate to the people that used to put the diapers and, you know, pee on the plants. I've been through that. It's not a lot of fun. And also that when neighbors are upset because of the noise that emanates when people don't respect their neighbors. But at any rate, I think could you put in the resolution about the signage? Because that's one thing that seems to resonate with the police and with the PAP.
I wonder, Trevor, if we could have maybe even some kind of a meeting with coalitions around parks to talk to the police in general, because I think the dead body part really caught my attention. And you know, it's not just vandalism. It's if there's when we had a murder in our park, I felt like that required a little more rigorous response. So
to be fair, the police have been very proactive. It's just that the environment that we're now in is a little different than pre-COVID. So it has been difficult for any type of enforcement. We also have the problem with people getting drunk and they jump the gate, or sometimes the gate is open to the water, and then they fall in, and then we all hear the helicopters and they're looking for a body. A lot of times they find it, sometimes they don't. We're just trying to prevent, we want to get into a preventive mode living here because we've seen what happens and we just don't want certain things to happen. But I'm going to give some credit to Pepin Police because they've been proactive. They've asked us to write a resolution to give them a little more power to enforce stuff. That's the reason why I'm doing this at this point. I know Susan has a question, and I'm doing a lot of talking. So, Susan? Susan, you're on. Your hand is raised and your mic is unmuted.
Okay, thank you. I just thought it might be useful for people to know that there has been a meeting with the community board, the council office, and all the agencies. And you know, Trevor gave a blow by blow of what's been going on. So some of these things that can be done, like the signage, they're already in the process of doing. I think gates, which we talked about, if it's possible, will make a big difference. And the signage for closing time, actually, as Trevor mentioned, came out of the meeting. They want this a resolution from us to help have an earlier closing time that can be enforced. That's it.
Oh, okay.
So Trevor, are we talking about an earlier closing time, or are we talking about enforcing the current closing time? I thought there was a closing time already.
There is a closing time, and to be honest, I forgot whether it says 11 or 12 on the sign that's 33 feet up on the FDR column. So we're just they want a resolution at a particular time. I thought midnight was fair. I think 11 is a little early, but I mean, that could change, but I think midnight is fair. Allows for most residents to use the park. We're just trying to make it a safety issue so that we can get the park closed just from 12 to 6 at night and open it up at 6 where the runners and the bikers and the exercisers can still use it. And the sign is already posted. We're just really trying to give the police a little bit more enforcement power.
We even have the gates at Tompkins Square locked at midnight. And
Carolyn, the problem they gave us was who's going to lock and unlock. That's what they said to us. Who's we?
The 9th precinct came and locked the gates at Tompkins Square Park at midnight for years because they had to.
Are they still doing it?
I don't think they're doing it now, but they did it for quite a few years.
Sure. And who opened it in the morning?
Parks, I think.
Okay.
They opened it about 6 in the morning.
Okay. I see Patricia Stan. Patricia, you're unmuted. You're unmuted now, Patricia.
Oh, thank you. According to my notes, because I was also at the meeting, there was an issue with signage. All the signage that's posted there does say midnight, but it's a very old sign. According to Ralph Mussolino, signage can only be made for park closing at 11 or park closing at 1. So that was the issue that they were hoping CB3 would decide at this meeting.
You're absolutely
when
correct.
It's going to close.
You're absolutely correct, and thank you for clarifying that. I just thought 11, the official closing times are 11 or 1, even though on the post it says 12. So they needed a resolution from us to say 12. That's the reason why we're talking about this. I just think 11 is a little early, and 1's a little too late. So it already says 12. We can get a resolution saying 12.
Great.
I think things would work. Susan?
I guess that's irrelevant. I thought we were going to vote for 11, but I must be remembering it incorrectly. And as far as closing the gates and that kind of thing, the parks has staff that closes all the big parks. They didn't have the staff, that was the issue, to do an additional thing like Pier 35, and trying to get that done was the problem.
Right, and that will be part of the bullet point that we add about finding a way to actually physically close the park, whether it involves park staff or police. Last year, because of all the party boats, the 7th precinct just did it by default. They closed the back of it because there were obviously 500-600 people exiting the boat, all drunk, going through the neighborhood, going through Gouverneur and Flanagan lines in one. So
can we remember this the next time we talk about parks, open borders parks?
Open borders or lowering the fences?
Lowering the fences.
Okay.
Tricia's got her hand up again from Marc Richardson's office.
Sure.
Hi, am I unmuted?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay, so the issue with the gate, Pier 35 has no gate, and it's designed for an open park. But at the very back, where it continues to that part of the pier behind the sanitation building, there is a gate, and that the closing and opening of that gate corresponds to the dock master, and the dock master is also supposed to close the docking gate. So the question was, where was the dock master all this time? According to our first meeting, the dock master, nobody was there because of COVID. So the first meeting, the dock master, New York City Dock said, okay, well, when party boats come back, there's going to be more presence, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the big question here is, can someone, maybe security from Basketball City, help to assist, during the interim and close the back gate? Because there is a great big giant back gate to close Pier 35 and the rest of it.
Yeah, we're going to ask for that in the resolution, and that's what we're going to focus on because it is.
Great.
It's 9:15, and I think we've expressed all of our concerns. I just want to go to the next part of
and locking the parks has a problem because they don't have staff. With the trains stopping service at 11 o'clock, park staff has to return home. So parks has no one to close the park. That's another issue.
Right.
They can open, but they can't close.
And the 7th initially said they agreed to it and would do it, and then they sort of backtracked and said it would be difficult based on manpower. But we're still gonna ask for it.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing I'm reluctant to say, after hearing Michael's story about bathrooms, that, and this is for all committee members to listen, because this is what we're going to bullet point, that parks, and this language will be cleaned up, work with community members and elected officials. I'm going slow, Ryan. I hope you're capturing this. No? I can't hear you, Ryan.
Sorry, I almost drifted off there. Could you?
Wait up.
Could you say that?
We have, this is with the first point. Parks worked with, and as you know, we're going to clean this up. We're just trying to get bullet points so that the committee members can sort of listen, and we're going to vote on this. But Parks works with community members and elected officials to find a way to physically close the park at both entrances. This is the back of Pier 36 and the front of Pier 35. The police had asked for a closing time, and they need it because it's beyond 11 and it's before 1. So we're asking for a closing time of midnight, which is a bit late, but I think it's fair since the official closing time is 11. We're asking for a closing time at midnight. And at Parks, work with the, I'm just going to say community members to figure a way to get bathrooms. And this isn't the best language because Michael has scared me tremendously. To figure a way to add bathrooms to either the Pier 35 site or someplace nearby.
Trevor, I mean, we probably can't get this specific in the resolution, but I think that area is big enough that you might want to request those trailer bathrooms that actually lock.
Before COVID, we did have some commitment from elected officials about providing some of that, but nobody has any money. So I'm looking for cheap and easy, quick solutions. Porta potties are pretty cheap. Closing times are pretty easy. I'd love to see that. Just for everyone's knowledge, there was a bathroom plan for that area along the Esplanade, and it got cut from the Packard Street development portion, which we were very upset about. But there was the whole area was planned to have a bathroom. But once you take that out, then everything sort of messes up. And I'm drawing a blank. Susan, was there anything else that they were asking for?
Trash cans?
Trash cans. Yeah, that would help.
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I think the main things I remembered were the gates and the closing time. And, I'll start off the reso with kind of a description of everything you said was going on.
Okay. And the other, Brian, to your point, is that the Department of Sanitation must they promised us the Big Bellies trash cans, but they haven't delivered them. So we just want to make sure that they get those Big Bellies in as soon as possible.
So then you want to ask direct Parks to work with sanitation.
Or direct Parks to work with sanitation to.
Because the reso is basically going to Parks.
Got it. Direct Parks to work with sanitation to get the Big Bellies installed as soon as possible. We're also asking for Parks to increase their rat mitigation program so they don't have to repair a very expensive sprinkler system that got eaten through in less than 3 months.
So is this reso going to Parks, EDC, and NYPD?
Yes. Did you want to add something, Susan?
I just wanted to confirm where you wanted separate.
Yeah. And yeah, in my PD, and maybe even the pet police too. I don't know if we want to ask for an extension of hours. I think they're a bit strained at the moment, but and that's it. Does anyone have any questions or comments or suggestions? Anyone have a better way to get a bathroom in a park? No? Without it being burned or vandalized?
Or tipped over.
Tipped over with someone in it and it's locked?
Oh, God.
With a zip tie?
Stop.
I know it's late.
Scarecrow concept?
Good, here we go.
You're getting punchy. You're getting punchy, Trevor.
It's 9:22. So committee members, we're going to do it this way. Ryan, based on those bullet points, you want to do a vote and Michael unmute as we go along. So you want to call on the committee members, Ryan?
Yes.
I'm sorry, we're voting on the bullet points regarding Pier 35, which we just talked about. Go ahead.
We need a motion.
Motion. Someone want a motion to?
I'll make the motion.
Motion.
Okay, I heard two motion. And so Michael seconded Carolyn motion. Go ahead, Ryan.
Wait a minute, excuse me, what's the motion?
We're voting on the resolution that Trevor just basically narrated to us about.
Cop spot, okay.
Okay, Trever Holland,
Yes.
Kay Webster,
Yes.
David Adams,
Yes.
Ron Altman,
Yes.
Alda Chan,
Yes.
Ryan Gillum, yes. Valentina Jones,
Yes.
Michael Marino,
Yes.
Carolyn Ratcliffe,
Yes.
Robin Chattel, Josephine Velez,
Yes.
Troy Velez,
He was just on, but I believe he dropped off somehow. So
Want to ask for him again, Troy? Because I did just see him. So.
No, he's not showing up on the connection on the attendee list. It looked like he was at work based on how he's dressed, so he might have had to drop off for some reason.
Okay.
okay.
All right. What? Ryan, is that it?
That's it.
All right. Thank you. We still have one item, and once again, if folks want to stay on to talk about district needs, they can. This shouldn't be a long discussion for committee members. Michael, if you want to screen share, I think did you get that document?
Yeah, I can bring it up. But do you want to edit it as we talk about it, or should I be doing that, or do you want Ryan to do that?
Ryan, are you able to edit as, or do you want Michael to do it? Is it easy? Go ahead.
I can listen and edit. Is that what you're saying, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to edit it on your side, I mean, I'm sharing the screen, so people won't see the edits unless you share your screen.
I already,
Is there any way to make it bigger? It's very small on my screen.
Just keep in mind that we've discussed this at length for the past 3 meetings. We're just making some minor changes based on comments. So this shouldn't be a long discussion. We're not going to revisit the entire document. Just a couple of issues that were raised at our last meeting. With regards to, yes, we're just trying to figure out who's going to edit because we have to track changes on this.
Well, you know, I'm like I said, I hope there may be some word changes, but you know, I hope everything's been incorporated.
Yes. Oh, okay.
So if you want to kind of scroll, what I did is everything that was approved last time was accepted and cleaned up. So when you go into the Parks building, we should look at that. So stay there. I just go back up a little bit to get that paragraph above. Can you just go up a little bit so we have that paragraph above? Okay. So it had said needs rewording, turn into an ask. I just reworded that based on the comments from last meeting about renovating and reopening for community use. So that has been changed. And then if we look at the bullet points, this still has things. So, would like confirmation from that this is all correct. For SDR, based on the comments from last time, we just changed this because we're asking all of these to be open for community use. So we're just kind of describing how they're used now. So Stanton Street building are used by park workers, only restrooms are open to the public. Hester Street used by parks workers. I believe that should add the restrooms are open, right? Is that right, Kay?
Yes, there are restrooms open to the public and Hester.
So I should add, so if you could add after SDR used by park workers, if you just put restrooms there, I'll remember to update that.
Sorry, that wasn't clear to me. That put in.
Where it says Hester Street building used by parks workers.
Yes.
That's fine. I'll remember. That'll remind us to update that. Allen Street Mall. We're saying we were
told. Hold on,
told.
Susan. Susan, hold on 1 second. Ryan, was that clear?
Yeah,
Sounds
she did.
like she didn't need me to add anything. That it already
just
says.
Put in restrooms. That was fine.
Okay.
Okay, gotcha.
So for the next one, Allen Street Mall, the RFP is supposed to be released next month. So we just thought we should check back after the RFP is released to check that wording. Seward Park House was updated per the comments from last month. LaGuardia House Playground Building was updated per the comments from last month. But we also want to check it in October to make sure that demolition was complete. And then Tompkins Square is updated, and that was confirmed at a budget meeting we had with Parks. So, is there any questions on that section? Okay, maybe we can scroll then. We can scroll down. None of this was changed, so keep going. Keep going. None of this has changed. The recreational use has not changed. The rodents, I'm sorry, I didn't take out the, that's no change from last month. When we get down to maintenance, you can keep going. The wireless, we changed last month. This isn't the latest one. This doesn't show my last comments.
This is the one you sent me at the end of the day today.
I know. I know that it didn't save my comments. Sorry, if you hold on just a second.
You want me to bring up is it the text that I sent you last night that you're looking for?
Well, I used that, but I just threw in some. If you just hold on a second, let me see if I can find it. Okay. Okay, let me just read it. No, you better go ahead and read what you put in. I don't know why it didn't save Michael.
All right, let me find it. Hold on 1 second.
Want me to look for it?
No, I got it. I just found it.
Okay.
I'm just gonna copy it and put it in the Word document and then.
Okay. We had a lot of trouble going back and forth between our Google document and the Word document. And that's what the problem was.
Almost there. Sorry, I just have too many windows open. So this is what I wrote and sent last night, which Susan, it sounds like you made some edits to, which is fine because this wasn't my best work. So I can read it. Do you want me to read it?
It's up to you.
We could read it.
What was that, Kate?
We can see it. We don't think you need to read it, but I think what Susan was mentioning is that she made edits to this.
Yeah, I just added to it. I got new statistics from the Furman Center. So I just added to it that parks are used by the seniors and youth in our district. And I put in the percentage of youth and seniors in CB3 living below poverty. And I think it was something like 39% and 49%.
So does anyone have any comments about this paragraph or what Susan just verbally added? Okay, Michael, let's move on. I don't think there are any other additions.
Everything else was finalized before the last meeting. It's just showing, and the libraries is all updated.
I don't see anything here on the compost.
We never put it in.
Well, I think
and I sent everybody an email. There was two things. We were going to put composting in sanitation if it was necessary, but then we found out that the funding is restored for starting in January, and this is for a year from July.
Susan, that's not what I understand from Christine about the compost pile, and I think we had a very fundamental disagreement that this doesn't belong in parks, because I think that's what Parks is trying to say, that parks are not working parks, and this has been here for how many decades, and it's
I think Christine asked to have that, if I'm correct, Trevor, correct me if I'm wrong, Christine asked to have this put on the agenda for September and voted as a separate resolution.
Yes, but there are two issues here, and one that Kay is bringing up, and I think that's been lost a bit, is that what you just said is that it's no longer a district need because there's funding for it. As to whether it goes in parks or sanitation is a whole other question, but it's no longer a district need. Is that the correct understanding?
Yes.
In terms of funding?
That's Susan's understanding. That, you know, what I got from Christine is that this is the funding to start back up in January. Which program? We got 2.86 mil restored to do community-based composting fiscal year 21. And Department of Sanitation has promised to bring back 50 drop-off locations. I'm getting from her that, and I think it bears on the composting remaining in East River Park or having a siting if it's in, I know there's another site being considered perhaps, but it's about the fundamental issues like, can we have compost in our parks, especially one that it should essentially be grandfathered. And I think there's a whole section of people who lost their, desire to have the park not be done at all or done differently. And this is the one thing that keeps sticking. And I don't know why it can't go into our district needs statement. And I sent something to Susan with footnotes of the yin yang. It's probably too long, but it costs us nothing to put it in our district needs statement.
I hear Kay, and that's why I made it a separate agenda item for September so we can discuss it.
So that it would still go into our district needs statement?
This is, we're trying to get this done. It could possibly go in there, but just for technical purposes, because as many years as we've been doing this, I'm still a little foggy of district needs. Susan,
And you
understand
guys,
what you're saying.
you guys are going to do what you want. I'm just saying the thing about it being specifically on the park is specifically what I was asked to put on the agenda for next month.
Okay, so let's do this. Okay, let's do this.
I just want to clarify that we're still going to get to have a discussion that it would be possible to put it in our district needs statement, because that's the statement that, and I can go into a lot of things about that. That's my only question. I'm happy not to discuss it tonight because it's late, but I raised this a long time ago, and
I hear you, and the answer is yes. So September.
Okay, that's all.
It's also 9:38, and we're going to say yes to anything at that point.
Yeah. Well,
So,
yeah,
yes.
but we took time on other things. So if we want to make our meeting shorter, then we should time every section, but we don't, and it is what we have to do. So as long as
No,
we
I agree.
I'm good.
September, we're going to slot a whole bunch of time just to talk about that, including adding it to district needs. That being said, we've gone through the entire document. I don't think there's nothing else to discuss from our agenda. It's a bit late. We will meet in September, talk about this and a whole bunch of most part. We're done. We need to vote for attendance to adjourn the meeting. Ryan, if you want to take attendance. And someone either has a bird or a broken alarm. I can hear in the background.
No, I think there's a fire somewhere in my neighborhood, actually. I'll mute until it's my turn.
So this is a vote to adjourn.
Yes.
Before you do that, do you mind a grammar correction on your document?
It's not
very quick. You know, where you talk about equipment, and you use the word it. You really want to use the word they.
Thank you. Thank you, Louis. Ryan, if you could make a note about it versus they, would be helpful. Making a motion to adjourn. Does someone want to second that? Let's take attendance.
Second.
Carlin seconds. Let's take attendance now, Ryan.
Sorry, who was the second?
Carlin.
Carlin, okay. Trever Holland.
Yes.
Webster.
Yes.
David Adams.
Yes.
Altman.
Yes.
Alda Chan. Ryan Gillum, yes. Valentina Jones.
Yes.
Michael Marino.
Yes.
Carolyn Ratcliffe.
Yes.
Robin Chattel. Josephine Velez.
Yes.
Troy Velez. Okay, we're done.
All right, that being said, everyone have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Carlin?
I didn't hear myself called.
Good night, everybody.
I
Hold
called
on.
you, Carlin. You're good.
Okay, thanks.